Greetings, everyone, and welcome to GameFace, episode 252 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. This is the flagship show of Sifted Games, and we're going to be here for the next couple hours going through the best and the brightest in gaming for the week. Alongside me to do that is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Hey, I did manage to get to play Pac-Man 99 this week, and I pretty much agree with you. I think it is the best of the three.
Yeah, I got some pushback in the show comments about that. Some people said
I saw. I just don't like Tetris very much, so like I'm kind of biased already. But like, no, I have definitely played Pac-Man 99 more than the other two combined at this point.
Yeah, one person commented that they win Tetris 99 all the time, and they didn't think it was luck at all. I don't get it, because you can be playing and you can have your screen all the way to the bottom, and someone just attacks you, and it literally fills all the way up, and you just lose. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's some secret to it.
Some people are way better at Tetris than we are. That's all there is to that.
I mean, but I'm telling you, Matt, I'm at the bottom. Like, I have no rows.
Right, but I know people who can deal with that.
You mean with the whole screen filling up at once?
Yeah, they have strategies for that. Like, I've seen people get out of that.
I mean, I've got out of it like 1 out of 100 times or whatever. But
I mean, there is an element of luck to it, but like if you're really good and know exactly what you can do with those pieces, like 4 moves down the line, no matter what other piece you get after it, like you can do it. I never will.
Yeah.
The other thing, there's a PS3 controller. The other thing of this week is I got this, which is
what is a soundtrack for ActRaiser?
Soundtrack for ActRaiser. It's like a symphonic one and the original one. Original soundtrack plus a symphonic re-recording from 2018 and the CD. And then it came with this little card signed by Yuzo Koshiro, which you only got if you're one of the first 250 people. And the art on the albums and on this are by his sister, Ayano Koshiro, who also did a bunch of art design for the East games.
Are you going to frame that art? I'll
probably do something with it, yeah. It's a traditional like Japanese. I can't remember the name of what this is. It's like a shiseki or something like that. But it's a traditional sort of like autograph card sign, like equivalent thing. So I got to look up like how those are usually displayed, and I'll probably do that with it. Whatever you do to frame it that way. But it's really good. I mean, ActRaiser is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Yuzo Koshiro is one of my favorite game composers of all time. ActRaiser and Streets of Rage 2 are probably like top 5 of all time soundtracks for me. So it was pretty cool. It was made by a French company, not sold here. They were able to ship it out to me. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've been waiting for that for a while. International shipping takes a while these days.
Yeah, for sure. All kinds of shipping takes forever these days. USPS, It took 3 weeks for me to get a birthday card from Florida. 3 weeks to get a birthday card.
And if you don't already, Yuzo Koshiro is a good follow on Twitter. Like he's very funny. Yeah, he's got a lot of he does like cool behind the scenes, like background stuff. Or like he posts like art and like concept stuff he finds in his like garage and stuff in a closet and stuff. But it's like, oh, here's like designs my sister drew for Streets of Rage characters that no one's ever seen before. And he's pretty funny too. Like he's a good follow.
Well, we're good follows too, Matt. And you can find me on Twitter at Dinfire, and you can find Matt on Twitter at mkeil. That's MKEIL. And you can find Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games, and that's very handy if you're not one of our patrons or subscribers and you want to know when our content goes up for free on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to this show out on the wilds of the internet on any of the like 6 or 7 podcast services it's on, and you'd like to support us, head to patreon.com/sifted. Before we get going, we've already had a bunch of Twitch Prime. David5807, thank you. McWomble, thank you. Hope you're doing well, man. Corey Film, thank you for Twitch Prime. We've already hit level 1 of the hype train. The show's just getting started. And I also want to mention we got a huge donation from Sifter Stealthy this week. I'm not going to share how much it was, but he gave us a big chunk of money. And I just want to say that I really appreciate and I want to thank him personally for the donation. And if you're interested in donating, maybe you don't want to subscribe. A lot of people don't like services, Matt. Like they don't want to put their credit card in for services or for whatever reason. If you're one of those people and you just want to help us out and just give us a one-time donation, you can head to sifted.net/donate. Or if you want something for your money, you can buy one of these awesome T-shirts, the Sifted Army T-shirt. We have another design available too. You can get all our merch at sifted.net/store. Pretty slow week in games, Matt, as far as game releases. Some pretty big stories, however, that we're going to talk about in today's show. But I think relief is just around the corner. We have a couple big games coming real soon. Returnal, the new Resident Evil Village is coming. We're going to talk about that in today's show. And overall, May is looking a lot better than April and March were. In fact, this whole beginning of this year has been really kind of bleh.
Well, I'll also throw out a game that I haven't gotten to play yet, but I like what I see. I have to wait to play it, but it's called Before Your Eyes. It's an indie game. And essentially, I don't want to say too much about it because part of the appeal is the weirdness of what it is. But essentially, it's a game that it uses a webcam. That's why I haven't played it, because I don't have a webcam for my gaming PC. I had to order one. And it doesn't run on Mac, which is what my laptop that I use for this is. Basically, it uses the webcam, and every time you blink, the game changes.
What?
The game changes when you blink.
How does that work?
It's watching you blink. And then while your eyes are closed, the game changes. When you open your eyes, it's different.
That seems crazy, because if my eyes are tired, I blink like constantly.
Yeah, well, that's part of the game.
It seems like a seizure machine, maybe.
Well, no, because it changes when you're not there. It changes when you're not looking.
That seems nuts, but cool.
Yeah,
you could do some really cool stuff with it.
So I don't know. Rob Manuel recommended it to me and was just like, "Don't read anything about it. Just get it." Huh. And so I did, and then I'm like, "Oh, you need a webcam." I guess I need to read that much.
It makes sense. I mean, if it has to detect when you're blinking, you're going to need some.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know that until I got it.
Oh, because you didn't know anything about it.
He said don't read anything, but I don't have a webcam on my PC, so I had to get a cheap one so I can play that game. But it's
by the way, Rob Manuel, we talk about him all the time on GameFace. You people are probably wondering who the heck Rob Manuel is. Rob worked with us at G4, and since then he's done all kinds of stuff. He was like a part of the gaming program at USC. He's been a big advocate for indie games. He's done a lot of stuff. But anyway, we talk about Rob all the time, and I just wanted to let you guys know who he was. He's a good friend of ours and a great guy.
Yeah, he's the indie game guru.
He kind of is. He's kind of turned into that, and bless his heart, because I'm definitely not that. That's for sure. All right,
he's in the chat sometimes.
Yeah, he watches the show pretty frequently, so he might be in there. Anyway, let's get on with the show. It's time to hit it. GameFace 252. We're going to kick things off with another flip-flop, Matt. We seem to be talking about these at least once a month, where a gaming company does something really stupid. The crowd, the fans freak out. There's a backlash over it, and then they change course.
I mean, I wouldn't categorize this as really stupid by any means. No, it's not stupid to shut down the online store of a 16-year-old game system. Like that's not stupid.
So you think the fans were overreacting in this case, unlike
absolutely.
the Xbox Live pricing debacle that Microsoft went through?
Yes, like what are you buying? Like last week, I mean, I said I had my Vita over here and stuff. That's because I was going through the stores, the store, looking through anything else I wanted to get digitally before the store shut down. And I found like 3 things. And like a lot of the stuff that I would want to have digitally isn't sold digitally. Metal Gear Solid 4 is disc only. Resistance games, disc only. Like there's a lot of disc only stuff that's exclusive to the play. Killzone 2, disc only. There's a lot of disc only stuff that like the store is not going to help you with.
Do you think maybe more than fan outcry, it was people like you going to the store and buying stuff that convinced Sony
I bet that was more important than people complaining online. Yeah, it was like, holy shit, we're making all this money all of a sudden. We should hang on to this for a little while longer. I mean, they're still shutting the PSP store down because give me a break.
Yeah, the PSP store shuts down on July 2nd, so you still have a couple months before that. But PS3 and Vita are both going to stay open.
But of course, PSP stuff all works on Vita, so it's not. If you have a Vita, you're good.
What? Wait, what? You mean? What do you mean by that, though?
Anything that's sold on the store digitally for PSP, you can play it on the Vita. It's all backwards compatible.
So, but what was your point about if you have a Vita, you're good? I don't understand what you're getting at.
Like, you're not losing anything if you have a Vita and the PSP store shuts down because you can still get all that.
I thought you were talking about PS3 and Vita, not PSP and Vita. Gotcha. Yeah, I have a PSP Go. That thing is going to basically be worthless starting on July 2nd. Essentially, anything that's on it is what's going to stay on it for the rest of its lifespan.
Yeah, I mean, you can still download and whatever you own.
Yeah, you're saying games that you own, you'll be able to download still, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how long that'll last.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really, as long as PlayStation lasts, I mean, it doesn't really cost anything for them to just have that, file repositories up. You never know, like things could go wrong or things like that. You have the weird Steam stuff with Rockstar today. Or was that today?
Yeah, where they released like all the DLC and everything for all.
Yeah, but at first all their stuff got delisted, and then it all came back. And even like Midnight Club 2, which has been off Steam forever because of licensing things, was back up for like an hour.
Bizarre.
It's weird. Like somebody hit the wrong switches a couple of times there, but then they did the thing where they all of a sudden they're like, I think it was LA Noire and Max Payne 3 included all the DLC now,
and put out all the DLC for them, right?
All the DLC is included with them now. If you buy them or you own them without the DLC, you have the DLC now.
Yep, which is a pretty big deal, but still pretty weird.
Yeah, it's you don't really see where the motivating factor is there, but it's nice, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the PSP stuff will probably stay up for if you have a Vita, but your PSP won't be able to connect to it anymore.
And so today, when I get home from our live stream of GameFace, we have an episode of Pachter Factor going up where the part of the question is, how he feels about the stores going down. So I'm not going to spoil what he says, but I will say he does have a bit of a different perspective from us. But one thing he does bring up is that this is just par for the course with Sony, because when it puts out a new system, it only supports like 2 systems back, and when it puts out a new one, the third one back always gets cut.
Yeah, I mean that's not super uncommon. Like go try to buy something on the Wii store.
Yeah, I mean all that stuff is shut down too.
Yeah, you can't get online on the original Xbox either. Like that's just how it goes. Like eventually that stuff stops being supported. I don't even know if you can get on with the old DSi anymore. I
guess my big question still is why take them down at all? Like I just don't get it. The cost to keep that stuff up is negligible.
I mean, you still got to do some upkeep, I would think. And you got to keep the store mechanism in place for it. And like, man, I gotta say, like going back to like dig through all that to like look at, oh my God, that stuff is garbage. Like that store, I mean, that store was always bad, but like, it's terrible. Like I was sitting there waiting for minutes and minutes and minutes for stuff to load. It's really bad. And, if they're not going to improve it, I mean, I guess you can just leave it there and let it fester or whatever. But like, it's just, I think it's probably just a streamlining process where it's just like, okay, this is dead weight. So let's just get rid of it. So it's not on our to-do list anymore, really.
Now, I haven't gone back and looked at this stuff yet because I knew that there really wasn't anything that I wanted from those 2 systems that I don't have already. Is it a different storefront for those systems versus what you get on PS4 and PS5?
Of course, it's the PS3 store.
Okay. But why wouldn't they just roll that into their just store product so you can buy stuff for PS3 on the same store you buy the other stuff?
Well, no, because the PS3 has its store app, and that's what that is.
It's an app.
It's the you hit the PS3 store thing on the PS3, and it loads up what it always loaded up, and it's fucking terrible.
Well, yeah, like it's old.
Yeah, it's ancient. And I mean, the PS3 is already, but it's just like the whole process is the fucking nightmare. Like, I bought like, I bought the Metal Gear HD collection, and I bought digital copies of Infamous 1 and 2 because I didn't have digital copies of those. And like a couple other things, indie things that didn't have disc equivalents that I didn't have yet. And so I got all those and some PS1 stuff, Vagrant Story, stuff like that, stuff.
I think stuff that is what I would be interested in more than anything.
I mean, that was definitely what I was checking. I had the Suikoden's, and I got a couple of Atlas things like the Persona 3 portable, and a digital copy of Persona 4 Golden, stuff like that. The original Persona Innocent Sin and Eternal Judgment, is that what it was? The Persona stuff that I didn't have digital copies of, even though I had physical copies. I just wanted to have like a second backup of it, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they were cheap. so it didn't matter. But also, you went to go down. You go to download everything. You got to hit the download, and it's like pulls up the download thing, and you got to hit download in background, and you have to sit there and wait like 2 minutes while it like prepares the download to let you do other things instead of just staring at it for 2 hours because the download speed is so slow. And then after to download all those things, so like the 3 Metal Gear games in the HD collection and the 2 Infamouses and like a couple PS2 games and a couple PS1 games, that took 14 hours.
Wow.
I like left it overnight. The PS3 and then to install it all, like installing like the big ones like the Metal Gears and the Infamouses, like it was like an hour to install those things each. And the system can't do anything else. So as I just hit it, I turn the TV off, go do something else, come back and check. The PS3 was on for like 2.5 days straight doing this. Like
I packed away
nightmare.
my PS3 and my Vita at this point. So I really thought that at this point you could just go buy games for those systems on the same store as PS4 and PS5.
Oh no, I don't know why you think that. They haven't updated those stores in forever. I haven't
used my PS3 in like 5 years, 6 years. Like I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, so why would they? What?
I wouldn't remember. I didn't remember it was a standalone app. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
I just assumed that like the store was a store and it just connects like through like basically a hidden browser.
No. It's all dumb. Each platform. It's the same way the Vita and the PS3 have totally different stores when you load them. It's all the front end is different. And the front end, I guess, can only move as fast as the front end was designed to move. Like I would assume that if you wanted to put the work into it, you could make the PS3 store a lot better. A better experience. And then, of course, it's doubly screwed because they removed the ability to buy PS3 and Vita stuff from the web version of the store. So you have to go through the systems. You can't just buy it online and then go to the download section on the PS3 and just say, I want this. You got to go through all the store crap to get it.
They might have had a more viable market if they had actually moved all that stuff over to the normal store instead of making people jump through that dumb hoop.
Website. Like hell, if I would have probably just gone through the website, clicked on the stuff I wanted, bought it, and then never turned the fucking system on.
Right, exactly.
Like that's just free money for them, Like so, I don't know why they did. And for a while, they had there was a backdoor link you could use to still get into the PS3 section, but they shut that down like 2 years, like last March or something.
So when do you think they're going to shut these down for good? Because there's a gold rush right now. Which may stop now that they've announced that they're not taking the stores down. But
I think this probably buys them like another 2 years.
2 years, wow! I thought maybe end of the year. Honestly,
no, they're not going to do that fast. They're going to be they're going to leave it and hope people forgot in 2 years.
Huh? Interesting.
That's my guess. 1 year is not enough time because it just feels like you're stalling. 2 years feels like enough time to sort of let that cool off and be like, okay, we're just going to quietly do that. And everybody's playing their PS5 and PS5's like going strong and is like, I feel like that's how you're going to do that. And maybe they can have like some kind of part of the problem I think that people had with it was like, there's still stuff on the PS3 that there's no good way to play anywhere else. Like if I were Sony, I'm like, okay, we'll leave the store up and then we'll work on getting the PS3 stuff that's stuck on PS3 playable on the other system, on a modern system, so that if we go to shut it down and people complain, we're like, well, you can play all this stuff. You can play Metal Gear Solid 4 and the Resistance games and all that and the Killzone collection on PS5 now or on PlayStation Now or on whatever they call them if they relaunch it as kind of a Game Pass thing. Like just say like, oh, that's all there for you to play now on a PS5 and PS4. So you don't really need a PS3 anymore. Not that I would get rid of my PS3, but like that, I feel like that would be my move.
Plays all the backwards compatible stuff. So
if I really cared about people's opinion on this subject, that would be what I do. Is like I would keep the stores in place to buy myself time to come up with a solution for moving the stuff that's trapped on those systems forward to the modern systems.
It is pretty crazy watching the B-roll for Vita though, because it's a crazy system. Like it does.
It is.
Like I had forgotten half of the stuff that it does. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. But Pactor, in the new episode that goes up today, he uses a phrase that I think is very appropriate, and that is over-engineered.
Mm-hmm.
It was too much, which made it too expensive, and a lot of the features, like, again, I forgot it even had a lot of these features. Like, It showed the AT&T thing there. I had totally forgotten there was like the mobile version that would connect to like cellular networks.
Like a cell phone version.
Like
the touch screen is just everything's a touch sensitive thing. The back is ridiculous that the back has a touch. Who gives a shit? It's just weird. And I will say, loading it up, I'm once again, even all these years later, impressed by how gorgeous that screen is.
It is. I mean, it's an LED screen again, which makes it really expensive. So
it just pops. Like it pops in a way that nothing. Even the Switch doesn't. Maybe the new Switch will with the OLED, but like. There's a vibrancy to the Vita screen that's just like nothing else.
Yeah, it looks like an expensive kit. I mean, it really does.
Mm-hmm.
When you pay the money for it, you never felt ripped off when you started messing around with the hardware.
It felt like hardware that cost what it cost for sure. The problem was that then you had to spend another $100 on the stupid memory card thing to save anything.
Yep.
That was really one of the big deals. Is like, if you want to sell me a proprietary memory format that you intend to gouge me on, you got to sell me that system cheaper.
That just doesn't work anymore. I mean,
no,
nobody's.
It didn't work then either.
Like, it didn't work. Yeah, I mean, but that's when it was kind of transitioning away from quote unquote proprietary memory cards.
Right, and it's just like Sony wouldn't let go of that stuff, and it's you need like an external, a separate micro SD card to do like 3DS or like Switch saves, but it's like I can get those for like $19 on sale on Amazon.
Yeah, they're
like
SD cards. You can get them anywhere, and you can use that SD card somewhere else. The problem was that Sony wanted to
do this. Yeah, Sony did the proprietary thing and would not give us a break on it.
Yeah,
which is
and never did. I mean, I'll be honest, I never built a relationship with my Vita. Like, I don't have any affinity for it, other than respecting the fact that Sony went crazy in creating the ultimate handheld. Like, I don't have an affinity for it really at all. Like, I probably spent less than 100 hours playing my Vita, I would guess.
Oh, yeah, way less. I mean, I played Persona 4 Golden, and I played Uncharted, and I played Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi-Do 2, and that was about it. I think I played through Suikoden 1 on it when they first started putting up PS1 classics, and that was like it.
Yeah, there just weren't enough exclusive games for it. And the strategy of putting console games on a handheld, despite what Nintendo has done with the Switch, generally has not worked. I mean, it was the same strategy the PSP tried, and it had more success than Vita, but I think it was also a little more user-friendly, although it also used proprietary memory cards from Sony, but they were a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And I've been discovering those over the last couple of months as I've been like putting stuff back. So I've been like reorganizing my closets and like all the containers under my bed that hold to my gaming stuff. And I've just come across all these little nostalgia things. Like last week I dug out my GameCube, and it works now. I put it in the closet like years ago and it wouldn't read discs. I pull it out and it works fine. I have no idea how it fixed itself in the closet because it wouldn't read discs for like months. Like, I didn't give up on it. I'm like, it's just a quirk or whatever. I clean the lens. I'm like, something's going to fix it. And nothing ever did. And then I put it in the closet for like 5 years and I pull it out and it works again. It's really bizarre. But anyway, I've been just like doing that stuff, like reorganizing closets and packing stuff away, like my PS3 and my Vita and my PSP Go. And so I've been coming across all these things that remind me of some of the stupidity from the past, not just from Sony, but from a lot of different publishers and platform holders. But it's been a nostalgic trip, to say the least. But as far as the Vita goes, man, I never really built a relationship with it. I'm not really sad to see it go. Like, when I heard the stores were going away and everyone's like rushing to go buy stuff, I'm like, what are you buying? Like, unless you haven't bought anything in with your Vita since you've had it, like, I don't know. I know a lot of people like it for homebrew because it ended up getting jailbroken and people use it for emulators and stuff like that. And like I said, and like we both said, it's a great piece of hardware. And the battery life was always an issue, and they did improve that eventually with kind of revisionist models of it. But I just never spent enough time with it to really kind of build a relationship with it like I do with most platforms.
No. Well, I mean, I kind of feel that way about the PS3 a little bit too.
Yeah. Because it was only for like first party games for me.
Yeah. There was a thing on Reset Era where somebody was saying like, oh, yesterday, I think it was yesterday was like the anniversary of like 10 years ago or whatever when the PSN outage happened. Mm-hmm. It was down for like 2 weeks or
10
whatever.
10 years, huh?
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember it.
And like it was interesting to me how many responses in that thread were like, oh, I only use the PS3 for like, playing Sony stuff. So like I didn't even notice except that there were news stories about it.
Yeah, and my PS3 controller like started drifting like really early. Like literally the controller I got with my system started drifting, and this is before I even knew what it was. like 8 months after I got my PS3. Like I remember I was playing like a Jack and Daxter game or something, and I put the controller down, and he kept walking on the screen. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, and I don't think controller drift had even been a thing yet at that point. And I had to buy
it wasn't common except on a couple of like bad Dreamcast controllers.
Yeah, so that was my first introduction to stick drift. Speaking
of which, well, the thing that fell over early when I reached for the Actraiser thing. This is that's my original DualShock.
Wow.
From this is a Japanese one. Because because remember they came out it was just the 6-axis with no rumble, so you had to get a new controller if you wanted to rumble. So I decided to get a Japanese one because it came out first there, I think, and so I imported this one, and it is still going. Yeah,
they did improve the controller eventually to where it didn't drift as quickly as it did. But you know what, Matt? Like I'm still having problems with my Joy-Cons. Like they can't fix it. Like, did you see that, like, iFixit video where they explain why it's never going to be fixed unless all these manufacturers stop getting parts from this same supplier? Because it's just...
No, but that sounds familiar. I mean...
It's just not going to stop. And for whatever reason, the Switch, man, like, I've had problems with my Joy-Cons from day one. Like, I don't know if you remember, for the longest time, I couldn't get my right Joy-Con to ever connect to my Switch.
Yeah, I remember that.
I've now sent that right Joy-Con in twice to be repaired, and now it's starting to get drift again. So... And Nintendo, there's a class action lawsuit against Nintendo for it. Nintendo's put out statements about it, but it can't say much because there's a class action lawsuit. Like, ultimately, these companies are all going to have to find a supplier who can make an apparatus inside the controller that will last longer, because the ones that they're using right now, there's just a fixed number of times you can use it before they start to falter, and that's just the way it is. So I kind of hoped, the PS5 using that same tech. I really hoped that like the new controllers with PS5 and Xbox Series would move to new hardware, but nope, they're using the same ones as well. Xbox Elite controllers, crazy expensive controllers, they're using the same mechanism inside them, and they have problems with drift, and they have a class action lawsuit against them. Like,
yeah, well, having two Elite controllers, I can tell you that one works way better than the other at this point.
Meaning how? What way?
Meaning like I talked before about how you can tell there's a difference in how the analog stick works on Kingdoms of Amalur, of all things. One of them is normal when you run around with it, and the other, if you go to run and you try to angle the character to the left, it will stop running. It will cancel the run somehow because of some way that switch works.
Way too expensive for that to be happening.
And then that same one that doesn't move to the left properly that way, the A button is sticking now.
That's bad.
And I mean, granted, it's like 4 years old.
Still, but that controller is expensive as hell.
Yeah, and there's no way to fix. Like, I'd have to pull it apart and figure out what's sticking on the A button. Like, it's internal. The sticking is internal. It's something inside. It's not like I got like soda on it or something. It's just, it's something inside has ground down and is sticking. It's when I press it and it takes a second to pop back up. Anyone who's had a sticky button knows
click
that.
When you press down.
Yeah, it just doesn't pop up as the springiness is gone. Basically, probably needs a new spring.
Meanwhile, my N64 controllers still work fine.
Yep.
At least the ones that I haven't ground into dust.
I've been playing Saturn stuff with my 25-year-old Saturn controller from Knights, and it works fine.
Still fine. Yeah. I mean, look, N64 controllers had a shelf life too, but I beat the tar out of those things playing Mario Kart 64. The power slide just going ding 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 for hundreds of hours. And sure,
Mario Party.
You look like doing Mario Party where you put your palm on it.
Where at the end of like a Mario Party game, you just blow all the dust out of the analog.
And that happens, but those controllers still work. In fact, I liked my N64 controller that I got with my system the most, the gray one that I got with it. Because the stick was so loose, I could just power slide in Mario Kart like a beast. So it's a different kind of wearing out. But
I didn't do that with the analog stick on my pack-in controller. Eventually stopped working right, so I got a black one, and that black one I still use today. Like it's like you said, it's looser, but it's not like it's bad. It's like it's broken in.
Yeah,
it's
my GameCube controllers all still brand new, basically.
Yeah. And it's all like. Yeah. it's like you use another N64 controller. It doesn't feel right because you're used to the weird quirks of how that one you used forever works. It's like everyone's own controller was very personal.
I would take my gray one to my friends' houses to play. I would pack it in my bag with my records, and I would go over there and I'd plug it into their N64. Mm-hmm. It's pretty funny. But it's all different now. Everyone's using the same parts, and so if those parts are bad, it's all going to be bad. It's kind of like last year, I got for Christmas this past year, I got a 4K receiver to route everything into, so I could just send one HDMI 2.1 cable up into my new TV. And it had a bad chipset in it for HDMI 2.1, and every receiver that was released last year used that same chipset, and none of them can pass through 4K 120. So I ended up returning my Christmas gift, my big gift that my wife got me for Christmas last year. I'm waiting for the new ones to come out, and they're saying that they're using a new chipset, so it looks like I'll be getting a receiver here in the next 3 months or something like that. So it sounds like they fixed it, but it doomed a whole year of receiver releases for all the major companies. So, it's not unique to gaming. It happens all over electronics, but it's a bummer. And hopefully something they'll get fixed, like they find a better part supplier for this stuff, but it is what it is. So anyway, rest in peace, Vita, or really rest in peace, PSP. It's done. And Matt, you think 2 years, I think quicker than that, because what I think is going to happen is this gold rush is going to subside. Everyone going rushing to get these games, especially now that they've announced that it's like going to be extended or whatever. And I think the sales are going to flatline, and Sony will wait like 6 months, something like that, and they'll be like, okay, I think we're in the clear now. Because at that point, if you haven't went and got the stuff, like you're not going to go get it. Like,
yeah, I think that's too soon. Like it doesn't. Like you're right in that's how the statistics will play out. But if they do that, everyone's be like, see, they were lying. It was just, they're just barely waiting to pull it. They're just going to get more bad press from that. So I think they're going to wait a substantial amount of time for a cooling off period and then try to pull the plug again. And hopefully in like a year and a half, 2 years, nobody cares anymore.
Yep, could be.
I don't know why anybody cares now,
I don't
frankly.
either, but I don't begrudge anyone for it. Maybe somebody just got a Vita or something, and they're like, oh, man, I just bought this thing, and now
I just got this for $5 at a garage sale. What am I going to play on it?
Holding on to a Vita might be a good idea, though, because they didn't sell too many of them in the U.S., and so they might be worth some money eventually. So I would not recommend selling your Vita. I would hold on to that sucker and take as good a care of it as you can. Like mine's already packed up, all wrapped up in its protective wrapping. I always keep all the packaging when I get systems. That way when I'm done with them, I can pack them right back up and they look brand new. 20, 30 years from now, that Vita might be worth a little bit of cash. So make sure you keep a hold of it. Don't sell it. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that makes me very excited, Matt, as an older gamer who sometimes feels like he's on an island. Because I'll just tell you, at my age, when I talk to people and they discover that I really love games and I'm really into games, and I have a company that's a gaming company, and I review games and I do podcasts about games, they look at me a little cockeyed. Still, after all this time, there's still kind of this stigma around, like, at a certain point, you got to move on. I think particularly for people our age, it's like people look at us, there's like no way people that age play games. Well, the good news for us, and for the industry in general, I would argue, is that we are not alone, Matt. We are not on an island. Gaming among people our age is essentially exploding right now. There was a report this week based on a study from Global Web Index who talked to 19,500 people, and they discovered that gamers aged, and this is actually even far out of our age range, gamers aged 55 to 64 has grown 32% since 2018. They also found that 24% of grandparents see playing games as family time. So we're slowly seeing the stigma, the stereotypes about gaming being blasted away. And you might guess, well, how much did the pandemic have to do with it? It did have a lot to do with it. And really the big boost is in mobile gaming. MPD reported that the number of mobile gamers rose 17% year over year in 2020. And anecdotally, I would say that that's probably accurate, because most of my friends who are my age who play games or still play games are mobile gamers. Like when I talk to Pactor before or after we record Pactor Factor, we're just having just a conversation as friends or whatever. He never talks about console games that he plays. He always talks about mobile games. And a big part of that is that a lot of the mobile companies he's responsible for at Wedbush, So he has to know what they're doing, and he kind of has to play their games to see how they're monetizing them. And then once you learn how one company does it, when you're looking at another company, you're like, are they following best practices for that? Is it going to work? Is it not? So I get why he plays a lot of mobile games, but he does. Like, he still doesn't have a PS5. He's still really pissed off that Sony hasn't sent him one. Every time we record, he goes on that tirade. Like, I left it in the show the first time. But now I cut them out because people have got it. Like, he's mad that Sony didn't send him a PS5. But every time he complains about it. And I don't know if it's become like this rebellious thing where he's like, I'm just not going to play console games because they don't care about me, so I'm not going to care about them, and I'm going to play my mobile games. I don't know. But I think more it's a mixture of the fact that he enjoys mobile gaming. And he's tried to get me to play, like, Empires.
He can also afford it.
Yeah, he can afford it. And he's a whale.
He can whale the hell out of it.
And he is a whale. Like, for instance, he's tried to get me to play Empires and Puzzles 50 times, maybe more. I can't tell Matt, he's so desperate for me to play the game that he has offered to give me $200 and deposit it in my account so I can buy, like, Warriors or whatever. And then the crazy part is he's been talking to Brent, our old site architect, the guy who built Sifted. And now Brent is, like, hitting me from the side. He's like, he's flanked me, and he started to come at me about Empire. And it's just like, it's a match 3 game. Like, I've played a million of these games. Like, Pactor, like, tries to sell it to me. I'm like, Pactor, man, like, have you ever played Puzzle Quest, bro? Like, did you miss that whole thing, like, 11 years ago when match 3 was actually kind of fun and cool? What was the other one we played at X-Play? Zookeeper? Remember we used to play that head-to-head on, like, the DS or whatever? Everybody would sit around and play it. Like, I've went through that, bro. Like, I've done the match 3 thing. But anyway, the data does seem to back up that a lot of these older players are, in fact, playing mobile games. How do you feel about that, Matt? Do you think that really is an accurate reflection on the gaming industry to say, 32% increase for 55 to 64 in gaming? Or do you look at mobile gaming as kind of like this other thing?
I mean, it's a third pillar, I would say, of the industry. Like, I don't think of it as the same kind of games, really, because I don't play a lot of them. I think of mobile and PC and console, basically. Okay. Those are kind of the 3 things. At one point, there would have been a handheld as well, but that's obviously gone outside of what the Switch can do. Obviously the Switch is a handheld system, but like it's not the same thing as like a 3DS that's dedicated to that. You're all dealing with console games on that thing, and mobile. Like Switch is kind of the mid ground there. Is. Yeah. I don't know. Like
do you think it ever converts people into console players? Like ever?
What? No, but I don't think it has to. Like I don't think that's the point. Yeah, the mobile games are mobile games. I think that's the point for us
because we want more money coming in so that people create games that we want to play.
Well, that's a separate thing. Like, I don't expect people who are playing mobile games to one day suddenly just decide to play God of War.
Really?
No.
So you answer my question. You don't think it does bring people over?
Not in any appreciable amount, and I don't expect it to, and I don't think that it's a failure of mobile games to not do that. I think mobile games are mobile games in the same way that I'm not like I don't expect someone who enjoyed Avengers Infinity War to suddenly turn around and start watching Truffaut. It's like yeah, they're both movies, but they're for different audiences and for different reasons. And you can enjoy both of them just, totally easily, totally fine. But like, I don't expect one to get you to the other necessarily. And that's not a judgment on someone who likes one or the other. It's just saying it's just how it is. Mobile games are a giant thing and they are what they are. And that's just how it's going to be.
Why do you think mobile fails to bring people over to console gaming?
Well, it doesn't fail to. It's just not. That's not what it's for. It's not like it's its own kind of game. Like,
okay, I'll rephrase it. Why do mobile games not bring people over to console gaming?
Well, why would they?
Because they're video games, and maybe people after they get a taste of stuff on mobile, they may want the real thing. It's like a gateway drug.
To them, mobile games are the real thing.
But they're not.
I would argue they are.
No, to them they are, but they're not. In reality, they're not. I mean, console gaming...
Well, in reality, they are.
Console gaming is way more in-depth, way more complex. It's graduating up from mobile gaming.
I don't agree with that at all.
Controls are way better.
Well, controls are way better, but controls are more complex. But they're just two different flavors of the same medium. I don't I don't hold with the weird sort of looking down on mobile games thing. I don't play them really.
I don't look down on them either, and I don't look down on people that play them. I would just think that at least a percentage.
You just said you have to graduate to console games. That's a condescending way to phrase that.
It is graduating though, Matt.
I don't agree with that.
They're more complex. It's just like school. Like you graduate from high school and go to college. College is more complex.
It's not school. It's enjoyment. If you enjoy playing stupid shit like those match 3 games, then fine. I'm not gonna. You don't have to get more complex from that. Like that's what you enjoy doing. It's what you enjoy doing. Like if you want to read trashy romance novels, I'm not going to force you to read James Joyce's Ulysses because you're not reading what you could be reading. Like it's a hobby. You can do whatever you want. Like I don't get it. Like I don't understand why anybody would want to play. Was it Empires and
Puzzles? Yeah,
Empires and Puzzles. Like like you said, I played all those games. I don't think mobile games. 99% of the mobile games I've ever played, I don't think are fun to play. Like I don't enjoy playing them. Like I don't either.
I've tried so many.
Yeah, the only thing that holds me into playing a mobile game tends to be theme. Like the match 3 games I played have all been like Marvel and Ghostbusters and like that trend where everything was a 2D, like a half-assed 2D fighter.
Yep.
Like I played the Transformers one and the Marvel one and the infamous the Injustice one. Like I played all those. But I didn't really enjoy playing them. It was more like, oh, it's a Transformers fighting game. This is the best I'm ever going to get kind of thing. But yeah, like it's just, and then after like, 2 weeks, I sort of forget to open it again. And, then 3 months later, I'm like, I need more room on my phone. I guess I'll just delete this thing I haven't played in 3 months.
Because they also take up a lot of space.
They do. Yeah. Yeah. And that's that's just sort of how mobile games has gone for me. I haven't played a new mobile game in years.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, if I'm like out somewhere, and that doesn't happen very often anymore because no one's out anywhere anymore. But when I used to be out, like sometimes I would play a match or two of like Call of Duty Mobile when I was out, like waiting for my wife to come out of a store in the mall or something. But I haven't done any of that. Like I haven't opened Pokemon Go, and I can't tell you how long.
I used to play Pokemon Go in line at like Disneyland, but obviously that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And then like I get the other thing is like, I'm more and more reticent to open a game on my phone to, back when we used to be places where we had to waste time, because more and more of those games suck so much power out of the phone that I don't want to run out of batteries if I need to use it, as a phone. If I'm out somewhere where I can't just stop and plug in somewhere for an hour, like, to me, they're just power drains. And then like if I'm home and I want to play a game, I'm not going to choose a game on my phone. Like there's just no place for them in my daily life really, for something that I don't find, if I found one that for some reason was like super fun, like what was that one? That one puzzle game?
Like,
no, I can't remember the name of it. It was like Monolith something. It was like a puzzle game, like a 3/4 puzzle
Monument
game.
Valley or whatever.
Monument Valley. That's like if that lasted like 40 hours, I would play that more regularly. But the good ones don't. The good ones are over in like 2 hours, and then like the ones that keep you playing forever are just like weird permutations of Columns or Bejeweled. So
I would actually argue that I think mobile could be a Trojan horse to get people into console gaming, but the reason I don't think it does is because I think the people who play mobile games don't care about gaming that much. I think they know what it is. They know there's console games out there that are more complex. I think they don't want that. I think they want quick, short
diversions. They enjoy
diversions.
what mobile games are. Also, mobile games don't want to do that for the most part because they want you to play the mobile games. Like that's where they make their money. Like whatever the I can't even remember the names. Like PopCap, whatever. Who the hell makes big mobile games now? I don't remember. The people who make Ebony or whatever, Clash of Clans, whatever, don't want you moving on to like Civilization 6 or Age of Empires 3 remastered. They want you to keep playing Clash of Clans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the developers would intentionally try to turn their games into a Trojan horse. I just think that it could happen, but honestly, I just think people that play mobile games are happy because the system's free. They already have the phone. And so they don't have to spend an extra $500 to play the games. It's just there.
Somewhat. It's also just some people just don't want to, a lot of those people don't want to make a big deal out of, setup stuff and have a console in the house. And, like my mom doesn't play mobile games, but she did play DS and 3DS games for a long time. Mm-hmm. She tended to play strategy games and mysteries. Like she liked Phoenix Wright and like the Hotel Dusk and puzzle stuff. But she would never have a console because that's just not what she does. It's not what she wants. She wants to lay on the couch and have a little thing in her hand where she does like crossword puzzles or solves mysteries and things like that. And that's it. Like, she doesn't want the bigger experience. It's not what interests her about it.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of how it goes.
Yep. So kind of circling back to the topic of this discussion, which is older people now playing games. Do you think that maybe the number is even bigger, that the vast majority of these people who are supposedly now gamers are really mobile gamers?
I guess. I mean, I think a vast chunk of
or Switch
what we
players
would call gamers are mobile gamers.
Yeah. It seems like we're in the minority now. Like, there's more mobile players than console players.
I mean, theoretically, I guess there's, I don't know. Like, I know early on there was a lot of like pressure from like console and PC players to keep the mobile game population separate when you estimated how many gamers there were. But like, I think that battle is lost, and rightly so. They're all just games. I don't care. I don't care what you're playing them on. I don't care if it's Empire and Puzzles or Stellaris. Like, you're still playing a video game.
I mean, I do care, because I would rather them be playing PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo games, because then those companies make more money and they make more games for people like us. So
I'd rather people enjoy themselves.
I mean, I'm not like the person who meets a friend and he's like, oh yeah, I've been playing this turn-based RPG on my cell phone, and I'm like, oh, you idiot, like, you should be playing whatever. But I will say, like, oh, well, there's this game I've been playing that's a lot like that on my PlayStation 5, or I present the option to them.
Right.
But they're usually not interested.
If you'd like to spend a mere $600
exactly
after getting lucky enough to get a pre-order on a non-existent retail item,
it is a hard sell. I mean, it is a hard sell for people that are happy playing mobile games, and I do think
that's the real trick, is that like everybody's already got the device.
Yeah,
like that's why it's so big. Is like it's already in your pocket.
That's what I was
saying. You don't
saying.
need to sell anyone.
You're gonna have a cell phone no matter what, and it just so happens that it also plays games, and it just so happens that those games are starting to get pretty good. Like, you can't see it, but we're watching B-roll of Call of Duty Mobile right now. And, like, if you watch the B-roll of this game, it's hard to tell the difference between, like, this and whatever I'm playing in Cold War right now. So, the line is starting to get a little bit blurrier, and I think it's just going to be even more difficult as time goes on to convince people that it's worth spending $600 on a console if they have this thing in their pocket that they're going to have anyway, and they're just playing games on that. So one thing I will say before we move on is, if you are an older gamer, and man, if you're in that 55 to 64 group, God bless you. I'm going to be there someday. I'm not going to go to mobile gaming. I can tell you that much, Matt. I'll be a console gamer until the day I die.
Well, the as Gen X ages into that, that's going to change. Like, we're not going to suddenly turn into Clash of Clans players, or wherever the hot game is now on mobile. I don't pay attention to that shit. Yeah. But we're still going to play our thing. I know, like, I have a friend who's been playing games forever, and he's our age, but like, he has been stockpiling JRPGs for years. And I'm like, how come you never play any of he's going back to like the PS2 days. And I'm like, how come you never play any of the JRPGs you buy? He's like, I'm saving those for when I'm too old to play action games.
play action games. That's a good idea, actually. That makes sense. But what I was getting at is, if you are an older player, and when I say older, I mean like 30 plus. To me, that is kind of an older player in today's day and age. And you're looking for a community full of older players just like you, and you can't stand the comments on YouTube, and you can't stand dealing with all the trolls on Twitter, come to sifted.net, SIFTD.net. The average user, or the average age of the user on Sifted is 37 years old. It's a bunch of adults who love games just as much as you. It's a great community, and we're waiting for you. So come on over, set your Sift ratings, get your custom feed of content so you're only seeing exactly what you want, save your ass a bunch of time, and come talk about games with a bunch of adults just like you. So this is encouraging. Do I think that this bump is going to help Sifted? No, because as we said, most of these people are mobile players. Mobile players generally don't go online to look at information for new games. This has been a conundrum for traditional gaming websites for a long time. It's mobile gaming and esports. How do you get esports people to show up to your website? You can't. How do you get mobile gamers to show up to your website? You can't. We tried to crack that code. At Game Trailers, we did like these crazy, like we had this list of top 100 mobile games, and we were going to build this product where if you're a mobile gamer and you could say, oh, well, I like Bejeweled, or I like all these Match 3 games. Well, here's all the other Match 3 games. Or you like this turn-based RPG. Well, here's all the turn-based RPGs you might like. Nobody cares. Mobile players, just like esports fans, only care about what they're playing or the game that they really like and they like to watch. It's the same deal in both markets. Trying to drag those people to a traditional games website is pretty much a fool's errand. Esports, trying to cover esport, it's pointless. Everyone, if you're a League of Legends fan, you're going to riot.com. That's all there is to it. And that's the way it is. So the publishers
and if you're a mobile player, you are basically getting your next game recommendations from whatever pops up on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store.
Yep. Or from the ads that you're getting in game.
Yeah, ads as well.
Yep.
Or like, those ads they run on like, football and everything, they work.
They do.
That's how Clash of Clans
mobile game
blew up.
Ads, it looks so cheesy and so corny.
And there's still, I still get those stupid ads for Ebony and all those things. Yeah. The ones that really bug me are the ads you get on like Facebook and stuff that are like, they're like weird puzzle things where you're trying to like help somebody like not avoid the lava and get the gold.
No
or, like,
one can do this, can you?
Yeah, can you? But like the games aren't that. Like they're just match 3 games, or they're just like they have nothing. And like, and I'm kind of like, and people keep always saying in the comments, and I think there is like, if someone would actually make the game these stupid ads to make you think the game is, you'd probably sell a lot of copies.
Yeah, because Candy Crush, I mean, it's the easiest genre to create, and it's the genre that makes the most money. I mean, my mom will play Candy Crush. She won't play any other video game. Pac's wife will play Candy Crush. She won't play any other video game. So I get it. But false advertising on social media, that's just dirty. So there you go. The average age of the gamer is getting older. And inevitably, look, a small percentage of those mobile gamers will start playing console games. Not a lot, but some. And that's good for all of us because it just means more money into the industry, or the part of the industry that we care about, which means more great games for us. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next, get my notes here, about Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog is very elusive, Matt. They don't do a lot of interviews with the traditional press. In fact, very little, if any. Like, if one of their games comes out, they'll do interviews with, like, Rolling Stone and these, like, cultural magazines. They don't do a lot of stuff with the traditional press. And so we rarely get a chance to ask them the hard questions, or questions that we really want the answers to. When they talk to, like, a magazine or whatever, like a Rolling Stone, for example, like, Rolling Stone's not going to ask them questions like, what other games do you have in development? Is this old franchise coming back? They're going to be like, so they're going to talk about the transition from video games into the HBO show and stuff like that. So we rarely get a chance for gamers to interview Naughty Dog. That all changed this last week because Ted Price was on a panel with the co-head of Naughty Dog, and his name's eluding me right now. Is it Evan Wells? And that's Insomniac. What's the other guy that's not Neil Druckmann at Naughty Dog?
Oh, you mean the president?
Yeah, he's like the co-president or whatever. Yeah, I forgot his
Killian?
name. I don't know.
Is it William Killian?
No, that wasn't
his name. Is that the CEO?
Yeah, this is like the other co-owner or whatever. But anyway, he was on a panel with Ted Price from Insomniac, and Ted's awesome. And Ted decided to start asking him some random questions out of nowhere.
I think you must mean Evan Wells.
Is it Evan Wells? I thought Evan was Insomniac.
He's the co-president.
Then it is Evan. Okay. It was Evan. And he started asking questions that no one else asked Naughty Dog. The first one he asked was, are you guys ever going to make another Jak and Daxter? And Matt, do you have any affinity for Jak and Daxter, like at all?
Not in any way whatsoever.
I really don't either. Like I remember I played the first one, and I was like, I was amazed by how far I could see.
Yeah.
It was like the draw distance was like a mile long, and I was like, wow, that's cool.
Naughty Dog has always had really impressive tech. It's just they didn't make a game I liked until Uncharted 1.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Like, I was not a big Naughty Dog fan until the PlayStation 3 era. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And they kind of ran Jak and Daxter into the ground. The games didn't innovate enough from one to the other. Then they kind of farmed out.
I mean, I give them credit for changing it up with Jak 2. Just most people didn't like it.
Yeah, because they tried to make it kind of a grittier game, right?
Yeah, they turned it into like a darker sort of open worldy sort of thing. There was like a weird almost post-apocalyptic element to it. The other problem with Jak 2 is it's incredibly difficult. And like people didn't enjoy it.
The first Jak and Daxter was kind of tough. Like, it would have a lot of levels.
But it was more of a Banjo ripoff. And
it was
the other
friendlier looking.
Jak 2 and 3 were very Grand Theft Auto inspired in a weird way, and and they had kind of that weird edgy version of Jak with the fucking soul patch. It was like, what are you doing? I remember Sessler playing that when it came Jak 2 when it came in. He's like, what did they do? Like because he loved all the play, the Sony platformers. He loved Ratchet and Sly and Jak, and the Jak 2 came out, and he's like, what did they do to the game? It was just like very weird that they made that switch.
They're also,
but no, I don't care about Jak and Daxter. Was always the also ran behind Sly and Ratchet to me.
And the level design in those games was like archaic. Like they'd have these sections of the levels where you'd have to climb all the way up a tower that's like literally a mile high. And if you fell off one of the ledges, you'd go all the way back down to the ground. Just like goofy stuff like that made the games more difficult than they should be. And granted, that was before. I mean, we've kind of gone overboard now with the checkpoints, I would argue. It's like at this point, games checkpoint you every like 20 feet. But
but also the problem with like Jak and Daxter 1 was like, not only did that happen, but the problem was that then you had to play the game to get him back up there. And the problem, one of Jak and Daxter's like fatal flaws is that, like Mario 64, it's fun to just move Mario around. Just the act of controlling Mario is enjoyable. The act of controlling Jak is not.
I'd agree with that.
It's that simple.
Yep, it's true. Part of it might be because he's really tall. I mean, I hate to say it, but character size makes a big difference in how they feel to control. He's long and he's lanky. He has long strides. I think it limited how accurate they could make the controls feel in his games.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, because like you go back to Sly Cooper 1, Ratchet 1, and Jak 1. And as far as I'm concerned, Jak is by far the least impressive of the three in terms of how it controls and how it feels to play it. Like Sly and Ratchet, Ratchet doesn't quite have it nailed because they haven't figured out that they need to make it a shooter. They need to let you use that other analog stick yet. Right? Going Commando is the one that got that nailed that. Fine, the second one. Going Commando is a bit of a revolution, and then it's like, oh, they figured it out.
Yeah,
like
it's a third-person shooter.
What it needs to be. It's got platforming elements, but the shooting needs to be forefront. And they're trying to make it too much of a Mario 64 clone in the first one, so that doesn't quite work. But it feels better to play Ratchet than it does to play Jak 1, I think.
Yeah, I actually went to Insomniac before they released the first Ratchet game. And it was like a big studio visit that no one even knew what we were going there for. They wouldn't tell us. And we showed up there, and they put us in a room.
Go see the developers of Disruptor.
Yeah,
wow.
Like at that point, like Insomniac wasn't a huge developer at that point.
No, they only made that one PS1 game.
Well, they had made Spyro before that.
Oh, right, they did Spyro. That's right. Yeah. I always forget they started Spyro.
But they had kind of disappeared. And they're like, oh, you're going to see the developer of Spyro. And I was like, Spyro's okay, all right. And they brought us all in. It was probably only like 15 journalists or whatever, into this huge room. And the whole room was full of N64s with Conker, Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, like 20 kiosks set up with just the N64. And I was like, wait a minute. We're at a Sony first-party studio, and their whole studio is full of N64s. And then they debuted Ratchet for the very first time. And I will say this, it blew my freaking mind. What it was doing with, like, the nuts in the bowl. I mean, at that point, like, just the tech alone for the game. Like, in fact, when they started that presentation, Mark Cerny started the presentation to talk about the tech behind the game because he had built the engine just for Ratchet. And then they showed us the game, and I was like, oh, my God. Like, I think you can even go back and look on GameSpot and see, like, my preview from that event, and it was, like, glowing. And I remember coming back and like, Greg Kasavin trying to tell me to tone it down, and I'm like, I'm just telling you, dude, like, this isn't hyperbole. Like, the game really looks this good. Like, I'm not going to end up looking like an idiot when I publish this and people see the game. I guarantee it. And he's like, just tone it down. So I did. He taught me a lot of valuable lessons, Greg Kasavin. I'm very thankful for having him as kind of a mentor. But anyway, Ratchet, right from the get-go, was a superior game to Jak. And but there are a lot of people out there that still want to see a new Jak and Daxter game, and I think a lot of people have seen what Insomniac has done with Ratchet, particularly Rift Apart, which just looks mind-blowing right now. And I think so a lot of people are like, okay, what could Naughty Dog do with something like that at this point? So Ted just straight up asked him. He was like, are you guys working on a new Jak? And he was like, no. We are not working on a new Jak. He's like, and I think his statement was, I know this is going to upset some fans, but no. We are not working on a new Jak and Daxter. And then he went on to say, unsolicited, that we're working on 3 projects right now, all of which are new IP. Exactly. That's crazy. He also admitted that they have struggled working on multiple projects at once. And that is something that they're trying to fix right now with kind of these new projects that they're working on, is figuring out a way that they can manage developing multiple games at once, because I'm sure they're sick of releasing a game every 7 years, just like everybody else is sick of them releasing a game every 7 years. And I'm sure Sony's getting sick of their output as well. What would you like to see Naughty Dog work on, Matt?
I don't know, something new.
Well, we're getting that. They said it's all new stuff. But what genre would you like to see them go into outside of like the action adventure-y RPG-ish stuff?
Oh, I wouldn't. I want them to keep doing what they're doing.
Oh, really? So you want to just keep making games in the same genre?
I want them to do what they're good at, yeah.
Wow. So you just want different settings, different characters?
I joke about it, but I don't actually want Uncharted kart racing. Like, that's...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would want them to work on a kart racer, although they have, right? There was Jack Racing. Or did they farm that out?
They did Jack X. That's
true. Did they farm that out to another studio, though?
I don't think so.
I thought maybe they did. Maybe someone in chat can let us know about that.
I thought they made Jack X.
It's possible. It wasn't great. I remember that.
Yeah, they developed it. That was them.
Oh, they did. So they've done it before. It wouldn't be an anomaly for Naughty Dog to make a racing game. Although I agree with you. That's
it would be an anomaly.
That's the last thing I want them working on. But, Matt, I wouldn't mind seeing them work on like a more traditional RPG, like an action RPG.
I mean, I guess like they could do something like that. I mean, I feel
like in a fantasy setting, even like it doesn't have to be like modern.
Well, didn't we see like that concept art from that one guy who like worked on something for them?
That's right. That's right.
So like one of those projects is probably that, right?
Yeah, probably. And that kind of looked like what I'm talking about, like a fantasy RPG, almost like a Lord of the Rings type thing.
Well, I mean, just I feel like they're getting, I mean, they have RPG elements in like, Last of Us 2. So they're everybody's leaning that way. Sony seems to want that anyway in their games. It just gives you a sense of attachment to the character. But so I would imagine there's going to be some of that one way or the other. I don't know. I guess I'd like to see them take that looked good. Like that one picture looked cool. I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind seeing them take a crack at some kind of more sci-fi thing. Like a Mass Effect style thing.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do high fantasy, sci-fi, and then a game almost like GTA. Not a satirical game. It's like funny like GTA is, but something set in a modern day where the world hasn't ended. Because the way they look at characters and writing, I think that can be extrapolated across any setting and it make the game compelling. So I just want to see Naughty Dog explore settings, themes, and I wouldn't mind if they do expand more into a more traditional RPG instead of just kind of having like the action adventure with light RPG elements that has kind of been doing all this time. I think the things that Naughty Dog are good at are things that can be placed on almost any template and will instantly make it better. Just the writing alone and the storytelling, I think it would have a fist up, so to speak, on a lot of other developers that have been working in those sci-fi or high fantasy settings for a long time. Like, to me, if I found out that Naughty Dog was making a high fantasy action RPG, I would probably instantly be more interested in that than, like, Dragon Age 4.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in Dragon Age 4 in the sense of, like, can BioWare save itself?
Right.
But
there's that kind of
there's a nail biter in that regard. But like, I mean, I'm not. Look, I've never really liked a Dragon Age game, so I'm skeptical. But we'll see.
I was just using that as an example, though. It's kind of one of the RPGs on the horizon everyone's looking forward to, and I would be more excited.
I guess the only other thing that would be on par in terms of like scale would probably be Starfield.
Yeah.
Not that we know that much about that either, but. Or like, I don't know, whatever Obsidian's working on, that Avowed maybe.
Yeah.
But I'd rather see Insomniac. I'd rather see Naughty Dog take on. I'd rather see them take on something more action oriented than Skyrim and those, but not like a Skyrim. I don't want a traditional WRPG out of them. I want more of a action adventure that's heavy on the RPG elements, I guess I'd say.
The other thing about Naughty Dog to me that sets it apart, and again would make it successful working on just about any genre and any setting, is that there are no sacred cows. In their games, there's no characters that you feel safe are going to survive the game. I would argue that Game of Thrones built its audience on that, because in Game of Thrones, no matter how much they build up a character, like a lot of, like The Walking Dead, you can always tell when someone's going to die because they'll do a full episode about that character the week before, and then they die in the next episode. And there's always a build-up, and it becomes obvious. With Game of Thrones, you just never knew what was going to happen. Like, your favorite character, who everybody loves and everyone's posting memes about on social media, that character could just get his head chopped off. And I think that unpredictability...
Except Tyrion.
Right. I think that unpredictability from Game of Thrones, I feel like Naughty Dog has that aesthetic in its storytelling and its games as well. And I just think it's just compelling to me. And I think that sort of aesthetic works across any medium, really. And I think it also works across any genre or any setting in games. So anything that Naughty Dog works on, I think at this point, is just going to instantly pop up like the hype charts just because of, how good its games have been. I
definitely don't have the skepticism towards them at this point the way I would have for almost anyone else. There's not a lot of developers out there where it's like, we're working on this thing, and I'm like, in.
Right.
Like, whatever
like
it is, I don't care.
Trust.
I'm in. Yeah. It's like maybe them, Insomniac, Sucker Punch. They're all Sony studios.
It's true. Sony Santa Monica.
Yeah, Sony Santa Monica.
Yep. They're all Sony first party, which is why PlayStation wins.
There was a time CD Projekt RED would have been on that list, but not today.
Yeah. We'll get to them in a little bit.
I guess From Software, like, they haven't made anything I haven't liked in like 12 years.
Yeah. There aren't many. I mean, even Nintendo throws out a turd every once in a while.
Yeah, also, I tend to not be super clear on who's making what at Nintendo a lot of the time. Like, it's, both because they don't really publicize their internal development teams very much. You gotta dig for that. And there's so much like kind of cross supervision by the big people over there that it feels like somebody's got their hand in other things no matter what's going on.
We just got an update. Derek Chauvin found guilty on all 3 charges.
Yeah, I saw that.
Wow.
Excellent.
We don't usually talk about stuff like that on GameFace, but
no, but that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Thank God.
I figured because the 12 hours of deliberation for a delivery of a murder case verdict is very fast.
I was very nervous when they didn't just come back after 2 hours.
That's never going to happen just because of procedural.
Somebody murder somebody on camera. Like,
right, but procedurally, you can't do that fast just because of what you. But like that fast I was like, okay, either to get a unanimous verdict that fast has to be generally. It's like, okay, yeah, we watched that on camera.
Justice has been done. And it needs to happen a lot more often going forward.
Accountability has been held. Now do Adam Toledo.
Yeah, there's a lot more to go. But anyway, a little bit of justice today, which feels pretty good. Matt, so my question becomes with Naughty Dog, how much, we talked about it last week, Sony's in the Neil Druckmann business. Yeah. How much of Naughty Dog's success do you think comes down to this one guy? And if it is a lot, which I have a feeling you might say it is, how does that work when you have 3 games in development? Is there enough of him to go around?
Well, first, I don't think it is all him that much, because Amy Hennig built that company as we know it today. Yeah. Out of the Uncharted games. Certainly, it's kind of risen to superstardom on the back of Last of Us 2 now. So Druckmann's in the driver's seat, and he is certainly, in terms of I assume he and Cory Barlog are probably held up as the pinnacles in Sony. They're the favorite children. They're the ones that Sony's pointing to all the other devs and being like, why can't it be more like Cory and Neil? I think they're the gold standard for them. In terms of I don't know how much Neil hands-on works with stuff like Last of Us versus like Lost Legacy versus whatever's in development at the same time. It seems to me that as a writer and the director, he's probably very hands-on daily with what Last of Us 2 was. You can't really do that with 3 separate projects. Right. But I assume that he has people in the company that he considers to be just as good as him in terms of knowing what he wants and what he do and what should be done. So I feel like if he wasn't confident that he had people that could run things properly in his as his secondaries, his right-hand people, he wouldn't be agreeing to this expansion.
I mean, look, based upon what we've learned about Sony over the last 3 weeks, sometimes you don't have a choice. They're just going to come in and just lay the hammer down.
Neil Druckmann does have a choice.
Yeah. I mean,
or at
if you're
least
in the Neil
he
Druckmann
has
business.
the power to guide how it happens. So we'll see. It might hit a point where you're sort of like really paying attention to which one is his baby, which project is his baby and which are the two that he's sort of supervising. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I assume that in this scenario, there will be probably one that he focuses on more, and whether that is the one he's most creatively excited about or the one that needs the most help, I guess we'll see. But it's a move, it's a power move, both for Sony and for Druckmann. We just have to wait and see how it turns out.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You're kind of sitting there waiting for Naughty Dog to make its first bad game. Like, even though I don't like Uncharted 4 a lot, I would not call it a bad game. I just don't like it.
I think that would be a huge stretch to call it bad. You may not like it. It may not be your cup of tea, but but you're still looking at something that is production value wise on par with the other things they've made in the modern era. Yeah.
You can't really, you can say like, oh, I'm not into it. But it's not the same thing as saying like they made a bad game. Like they made a game that doesn't work. They made a game that isn't up to their standards. That's not true.
Speaking of which, how do you feel about no new Uncharted coming? They have 3 games coming and not one of them is Uncharted.
Well, we knew that. Especially with the rumors that, whatever the next move in the Uncharted franchise is going to be, it's not going to be Naughty Dog. It's going to be maybe that San Diego team they're setting up or something. Look, to me, Uncharted is over. Like I don't really expect anything more out of Uncharted. If the Sony San Diego team or whoever they get makes, or whoever they make it, another Uncharted makes one and it turns out to be good, great. But I'm okay with putting Uncharted to rest personally.
Yeah. Well, you didn't like Uncharted 4. I did.
No, I like Lost Legacy though. I would, I'm down with more of that. But again, I feel like they did everything they need to do in Uncharted. Really, like it's. Like, I don't know where you go from there. It's the story's kind of been told. Nathan Drake's story has pretty much been told. I guess you can continue with some of the other characters. I wouldn't mind like a Sully prequel or something.
Yeah, I would be totally down with that. He's a great character.
But I mean, you kind of have to continue because they're planning to make a movie franchise. So, you're gonna, the rumor is that Last of Us remake was going to be basically trying to align it with the Netflix show they're making.
Uh-huh.
So there's probably going to be a wing of Sony games now that are sort of companion pieces to their movie and TV projects. So that's probably where Uncharted will end up.
kind of cracked the window open to what you can do with Uncharted going forward. It had all basically new lead characters and female lead character.
Yep. And that one was not very focused on by Druckmann, as I understand it.
Yeah.
That was he was already on The Last of Us 2 by then.
Yeah.
But so if he's got one of the new projects is being run by the guy who I can't remember his name, but who directed Lost Legacy, like great, because he did a great job on Lost Legacy.
Yep. So anyway, that's the latest on Naughty Dog. I don't know if we're going to see anything from them for a while. Do you think we'll see stuff more quickly or less quickly now that they're working on 3 projects?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. Like they showed Last of Us 2, I would think too early. That was years and years before that game was ready. To the point that, like, I remember when that was the little teaser with her playing the guitar and Joel pokes his head in.
We ran that a lot on GameFace.
Yeah. Well, I remember like I was like, that game's like 4 years out, and you're like, you're crazy. That's next year or something. They wouldn't show it this early, and I'm like,
and they did,
and they sure did. They sure did. And look, it didn't hurt them, didn't hurt the sales or anything. So I guess it if anything, it just kind of built some hype. But one of the reasons that built hype was because we were already invested in the Last of Us characters. Yeah. So for a project that's completely new, I would say you probably want to debut that a little closer to release.
Don't you think you may want to debut it a little earlier so you can build sort of the lore and the world and people understand it? No. All you're doing is stretching it out. Then you want the initial rush of Naughty Dog's making something new. You've never seen it before. Here it is. What's that? Let's we're going to do that. We're going to be another preview and demo thing. And then you're going to get it at the end of the year. Like that's how you get there. That's the hype machine for that. You don't want to give people too much time to think. Okay. I don't think they will. They'll see Naughty Dog and they'll buy it. I think. Yeah, I mean, probably. That's kind of where we're at this point. I don't blame them. What I'm saying is, like, it's too. People are already invested in Ellie and Joel, and you are never going to hit a point where 4 years later, people are like, "Well, I'm tired of thinking about this now. It's over." Yeah. If you're just going to show me a bunch of new stuff that I don't have any attachment to, and then make me wait 4 years, like that's different. Like that, there's a more sour taste to that. So I think you want to show that closer.
to really, even if it's just 2 years. You know, it's you don't have to like you don't have to like fall out for it or anything.
Oh, okay.
But I think just
like
not do it. Don't show stuff half a decade out if I don't already care.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
I thought you were talking about like the Fallout model, basically.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that, but I think just like 2 E3s is about my limit for a new IP
I think that's
from
fair.
them.
I think that's totally fair. It's insane that we would have to even question whether something like that is fair.
But I mean, look,
But after Cyberpunk and The Last of Us Part 2 and blah, 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 it's just kind of the way it is now. All right.
Final Fantasy 7.
Yep.
Shenmue.
Yep. Okay, so speaking about hype, there's nothing more hype right now than the PlayStation 5. The console, still, they can't make enough to satisfy the demand for the console. I still can't find one. I have honestly been trying to get Pachter a PS5 because he's become so disgruntled over Sony not sending him one that he's not even trying to get one. He's given up. So I've been trying to help him find one because I realize he's in this dark place with it. And you can't. You cannot get a PlayStation 5. It doesn't matter how many times I show up to Walmart.com or BestBuy.com or GameStop.com. I cannot get a PlayStation 5. It's the same song and dance. You get there, you go through the process, the website crashes. They still haven't fixed their websites. Like, they still crash. They still haven't instituted queues for this stuff. Like, they've had time now, Matt, to, like, figure this stuff out. They haven't. They've decided this is good enough, and this is the way we're going to do it. You still cannot find a PlayStation 5 on store shelves. You can't even get, if you get to the website the minute they go on sale, you're still not getting one. It's very discouraging for people who are trying to get them. Yet, it just continues. Like, it still hasn't died down from the way it was over the... I still am shocked that I have one, Matt. Like, I just got so flippin' lucky. Like, there are people just as dedicated as you and I who still can't get one. Lots of them. Like, it's crazy and it's bizarre. And that has resulted in the PlayStation 5 being the fastest-selling console in the history of video games. It's 5 months out at this point. You still can't get one. I do remember the Wii was kind of like this, still at this point. But I think even the Wii
was like that because they sold them as fast as they could make them. The PS5, part of the problem here is the chip shortage.
Yeah, they can't make them as fast as they'd like to. Yeah. And that's a problem.
I got some friends that are doing the same thing. They want one and can't get one. I tried to help a bit, and I did find one. They were live on Walmart's site earlier last week, but they were gone in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if any of you guys stumble across one and you don't want it, and you know they're looking to sell it to someone who doesn't want to make a crazy profit on it, DM me on Sifted because I would really like to get one for Pachter. He's really pissed off about it. But I think if I delivered one to his doorstep, I think it might change his perspective big time.
Can he just go? They're available on the secondary market. You want to pay $1,000 or something?
Oh, it's a matter of principle now, Matt. He's not going to do that. Like, he's just not. His contention is like he's very angry that he sees YouTubers with them. That's what bothers him the most because he's like, okay, they consider them influencers. Am I not an influencer? And he's right. Like, he is a huge influencer. And that's what bothers him more than anything. Like, the fact that he sees, like, a YouTuber that has it who's, like, 14 years old. And they're like, Sony sent this to me along with all the games and blah, blah, blah. Like, I've gotten over that crap a long time ago. He has not. So he's very salty about it. So if any of you guys have an extra PS5, I know it's a long shot. But if you do, DM me on Sifted. Just go to the messages. Just go @Shane and send it to me, and we'll try to work something out. But anyway.
I mean, that's like seems like an apples and oranges comparison to me. But I do think it's weird that they would not have sent him one.
It is weird. I mean...
like I wouldn't expect the same person sending PS5s to influencers to be the one to send one to him.
Right.
But it feels like there's about 5 people with VP in their title over there that would be like, oh, we got to make sure we get one to Pachter.
Yeah, it sounds like there's somebody's got a grudge or something over there. I don't know, but it is weird. And he's not taking it well. So anyway, if any of you come across one, just hit me up. So anyway, hardware sales overall were up 47% in March, year over year. And you got to remember, March, we were already in a lockdown. So the hardware explosion had already happened a year ago. And they were still up 47% year over year. So not just PS5. Xbox Series is also selling great. I mean...
Yeah, you can't get Xboxes either.
They're selling as fast as they can make them as well. So don't think this is all about PlayStation. My bigger question here is that I've actually got to the point where I feel like I'm getting value from my Xbox Series X. and I hardly play my PlayStation 5 anymore. So the big question here is the PlayStation 5 worthy of this? Overall, March was up 81% year over year. The gaming industry is just going crazy. Switch, and I wouldn't leave Switch out of this, Switch led total hardware sales in both units and dollars. So Switch is also, Nintendo also basically selling every Switch it can make right now.
Yeah, and Nintendo's got also an advantage because they can make them.
Right.
Like they're not being as affected by this high-end chip shortage because they're using, different tech, and that means they can basically make way more Switches than Sony can crank out PS5s. So there you go. Like, Nintendo's been benefiting through the pandemic a lot just because Animal Crossing alone.
It was the perfect pandemic game.
Flawless
the timing
timing.
of that couldn't have been better. It's really crazy that it came out right when it all started, and it was the perfect game for the pandemic. Light and whimsy. Huge time suck when everybody needed time.
You got to log in every day, so it's like a structural thing, a scheduling thing.
Which all people also needed. People needed structure. Like it was a perfect storm.
Incredible. I mean, I haven't touched it in almost a year now. But those few months, I think I played it through about June. I remember playing it the last time I played it was probably somewhere around the time of the E3 videos were starting to hit.
Yep.
But I really enjoyed those 3 months. That was just what I needed. Now I will associate it with that period of time forever and never want to play it again. But here we are.
So Matt, my question to you is this all worth it? All this scrambling to get a PlayStation 5, the going to the websites, the being disappointed, the paying $1,500 on eBay for a PlayStation 5. I really struggle at this point to see why it's worth it right now. Because
the thing is like I've paid premium prices for certain things that are out of print or never coming back again.
Right.
But PlayStation 5s are not going to be scarce forever.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
They're going I don't know. I mean, look, maybe I'd think differently if I didn't have one, but it's there's nothing on there that I'm I have to pay $1,000 right now to play X.
There's not a single must-play game available for it. Not one.
No.
Not even close, really. I mean, for some people, I think the Demon's Souls remake probably is, but I think that's for a small segment of people.
Is it worth that much money? I mean,
no, it's not.
There's nothing that urgent on it right now. You know what I mean?
Do you think this is all being driven by FOMO?
There's some of that. Also, some of that I'm sure is driven by the stimulus checks. People got some money.
Right.
They want to spend it on
that chunk of change in their bank account right now.
Mm-hmm.
Burning a hole in their bank account.
I can see if you're doing moderately okay and you got a decent chunk of the stimulus check, I can see you being oh, that's free money. We should use that to get the PS5, and then you can't get a PS5, and you're
yeah, if you didn't lose your job and you stayed employed for the last year and you got the between the two checks $2,000 just sitting there in your account and there's nothing else for you to spend it on because you can't do anything, I guess I could see where that would be pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I wanted to discuss this to...
It's also I understand the frustration of some of the people I know because it's April. And even you and I were saying back then, it's April's probably about when you'll be able to find them on shelves once the holiday rush is over and all that. Right. And we were completely, we did not foresee the chip shortage problem or the production problems, but this is about when I would have thought it would become more or less plentiful, and it's been the opposite. So I understand the frustration of people who are I'll just wait until next year sometime, and it's 6 months later and they still can't get one.
I can understand the frustration, but I think they should not be as frustrated as they are, is what I'm getting at.
Well, I don't think they should be willing to throw money at, scalpers and
definitely do not pay the scalping
stuff.
price on eBay. Unless you're a trust fund kid and you've got, $100 million sitting in the bank and money really doesn't mean anything.
But even then, don't encourage that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I could understand if somebody like that bought it, though, at that price. Any normal
but it's you're contributing to something that you shouldn't be contributing to. It's just going to make it worse. Could I afford to do that if I wanted one? Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not going to give somebody that money.
Well, the other day, someone in my Facebook feed posted basically rubbing it in people's faces. They're
"Oh,
you fools who are trying to get PS5s. I've already got 10 and I've sold 8 of them on eBay." And he's here's the step-by-step to not be bummed out about it. And it was point 1 and point 2, and it was just a bunch of crap. But I was point 3 should be, how do people get them? If you're going to come on here and like rub it in people's faces that you got all these systems and they can't get one, like at least help them, like tell them like how they can get one. And he wouldn't share it. He's like, no, because then other people will get them. And I was like, what? Like,
he's making money off it. Of course, he's not going to share that.
It's crazy though. Like, what?
You don't tell anybody where the marijuana field is.
But my point is, it's crazy what it's become. Like, there's this cottage industry of greedy people who have figured out a way to like jump the lines at websites and get them. Like, probably some bot or whatever that he uses to get them, or some program that just spams like the server with requests or something. I don't know, but somehow,
there's stuff like that. Yeah.
So somehow, some way, this guy's figured it out. Meanwhile, there are people who are like losing sleep because they can't get one. But the reason I wanted to discuss this is I wanted to ease their minds because I feel like they think they're missing out on more than they really are. I mean, again, I haven't booted mine up in I don't know how long. Like I did boot it up this week because there was supposed to be the huge firmware update. That's supposed to be the first major firmware update. And ultimately, it did like nothing. It's like, there's like, it changed the storage options.
I booted it up to do the Resident Evil demo.
Yeah. That's right. I did play the RE demo on my PlayStation because I had to because it was like
because it's only on that.
Yeah,
so.
And we'll get to that later in the show.
But otherwise, not a lot of activity over there.
You can do that on a PS4 as well. You don't need a PS5.
Right.
You can get the demo just on your.
I
own
mean,
PS4.
everything is true of that except Demon's Souls, really.
Yeah, so far, and that's the other thing. Like,
I guess Godfall, but who cares?
Yeah, who cares about that? I mean, that's the other thing. You're not missing Destruction All-Stars, which just popped up in the B-roll. But, like, you're not missing anything.
I was going through my library on that thing, and I saw, like, Destruction All-Stars. It says, like, in library. I'm like, why do I own that? I forgot I got it through, like, PlayStation
Free
Plus.
From PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, I was like, why do I have that? What's that doing here? It was like finding a U2 album in my iTunes thing. It's like, who authorized that?
The other day I was on Twitter, and like this is how bad it's got, Matt. It has become like a status symbol, essentially. And I was on Twitter, and I was scrolling through, and there was this kid who had pulled into like this Roach Hotel parking lot, parked his car, flew the doors open, and then sat the box of his PlayStation 5 in front of his car and was posing on his car. I was just like, Are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is where we're at with these things? Like, it's not worth it, people. It's really not. It is just a piece of plastic and transistors, and right now there's really nothing to play on it. And I would argue, too,
honestly, you probably had more fun driving there and taking that picture than anything you could have played that came out this week on PlayStation 5.
I got more joy at laughing at his photo than I have got from playing my PlayStation 5 for the last, 2 months. I'll be honest with you. Like, I just feel bad.
I played Disco Elysium on it. That's cool. But again, that's on PC too. But if you don't have a PC for that, that's a good reason. But again, also on PS4.
I mean, the other thing I would argue is that playing PS4 games on PlayStation 5, the jump isn't that big.
It's just the load time. Really.
That's it. The way the games don't look that much better. That was my biggest disappointment. Actually, was I got my TV before I got my PlayStation 5, so I had like a 4 or 5 day window to play my PS4 Pro on my new 4K TV before I got my PS5. So I played Spider-Man, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, 3 or 4 games, Watch Dogs Legion. I played those all on PS4 Pro before I got my PlayStation 5. And that was the biggest disappointment for me with PlayStation 5, was seeing that they did not look that much better running on the PlayStation 5 Now,
Spider-Man does.
It does.
The remastered one does.
But load
the other
times,
thing I'll say, Watch Dogs Legion looks so much better on the Series X than on the Play. I don't know what I think there's a difference in what the bells and whistles they turned on the Xbox for Legion, because it looks real good on the Xbox.
I have not tried it yet. To see.
When I loaded that up for the first time on the Xbox, I was like, whoa, because that was right after I played Watch Dogs Legion for a month, right? I was probably 40 hours in that game on the Xbox One X. And when I first loaded it up on Series X, I was like, wow, you could see forever down the street. The lighting looked different. It looked like a different game almost. Mm-hmm. And then but everyone I know who had it on PlayStation 4 and switched to PlayStation 5 said exactly what you did. It doesn't look any different. So there must be some difference in bells and whistles on that, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, unless it was specifically remastered or patched for PS5, the jump is not particularly noticeable if you're playing PS4 content. Even the Avengers patch I didn't really notice a difference.
Yeah,
I did load that up when the PS5 patch went up, and I'm like, I mean, I can see it because I know what I'm looking at, in terms of like ray tracing and stuff, but like it doesn't make a difference really.
Yeah. Here's what I would say: instead of beating yourself up over the fact that you still don't have a PlayStation 5 and running around on the internet and following Wario 64, still trying to get one, just stop and wait, because really, the next big date you need to be looking for is the release date of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It's still 2 or 3 months away. Let all these idiots overpay for them, take up all the stock at GameStop, just chill. Maybe, worst case scenario, find a cheap PS4 Pro somewhere so you get a little bit of an upgrade. The value of those is sky high as well. So if you buy one, you'll be able to resell it for a pretty high value because you can't find those anywhere either right now. So if you can find a PS4 Pro, maybe get that because it still looks really, really damn good on a 4K TV. But just chill on the PlayStation 5. Like, I know it's hard, especially if you've been at this now for like 5 months and you still don't have one. It may turn into like this personal thing for you where you're like, I'm not going to let it beat me. Like, I've got to do it. I've got to get one. I really struggle to find a reason why it would be worth all the hassle, especially if you've been doing this for 5 months and you just keep striking out over and over again. Matt, the other thing is that accessories have like done really, really well over the last few months. The DualSense controller selling like hotcakes. Looks like a lot of people want that extra controller. Somebody bought me one for Christmas, which I appreciate very much. One of the sifters got me one. I'll be honest with you, I haven't even used the second controller yet because I can't play with anybody. No one can come over.
Yeah, I do have a second one because I got it in the bundle, the GameStop bundle. So that got me like, I got that, and I was supposed to have Destruction All-Stars, but that got canceled.
Yeah, they're selling really well. Headsets are selling really well.
Yeah, I got a headset from that too.
Which makes sense.
All right. Yeah.
But I think overall, like, it's just become this status symbol, like, hype thing that when you actually own one, I think a lot of people probably get their PS5 and they're like, oh, I don't get what all the noise was about.
Yeah, well, I do have, like, I had a guy come in to fix some stuff like a month or two ago. And he came, he like, he's from a plumbing service, but he's like, he knew games and movie stuff. And he went through the living room. He's like, is that a PS5? I'm like, yeah. He's like,
Sacred cow.
He's like, that is gigantic. Like, you've never seen one before. And he's just like, that's huge. Like, I don't know where I'm. He's like, I want one, but now I don't know where I'm going to put it. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, they're big.
That happened. They fixed our air conditioning like 2 weeks ago, and the guy who came in was like, oh, you got a PS5. And it's crazy what it's become. Like, and this guy, he didn't even say, like, I'm a gamer. Like, he was just like.
He just knew what it was.
He just knew that I had something that a lot of people are trying to get. And then I was like, oh, crap, he's going to come in and, like, steal it.
Oh, the Philly boy.
Exactly. Man, hey, my apartment here in LA got broken into when I was there for Christmas. They took everything. I lost like my entire game collection. I had to rebuild. So it's not just a Philly thing. Like,
no, I mean, we're coming up on the year anniversary of those guys trying to break in here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you had a break in while you were there.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. I prefer my break-ins to happen when I'm not there, Kyle. Okay.
Well, they ran away from me, so it worked out okay.
But anyway, look, if you've been on this crazy journey trying to get a PS5, take it easy on yourself. One, it's not you. It's not you. You're not the reason you're not getting it. And two, when you do get it, you're probably going to be really disappointed in it because there just aren't a lot of great games to play on it yet. So even if you are a big Souls guy, you'll get through Demon Souls in a couple weeks, and then you're just left with crap like Destruction All-Stars. And
well, you've also got like Miles Morales.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff to play on it.
That game's like 10 hours decent. Long. It's not very long. Yeah.
Spider-Man's worth playing again, the remastered version. There's stuff there, but it's like, again, like, and there's going to be some serious FOMO when Ratchet comes out. That's for sure. Like, I think Ratchet's going to be a bit,
that's what I said.
A game of the year candidate, but like,
and when Ratchet
it might not be any better in June, but we'll see. I'm interested to see if so. I mean, I know Sony's not at E3, but I assume they'll do something around the same time or before or after in there somewhere. I'm curious if they'll address this at all. or at least give some kind of a time frame of when you expect to like fix it.
Because they really haven't issued an official statement.
No, there's been really no communication about it at all.
Yeah. Sony's been kind of radio.
That's part of the frustration too, I think, is there's no indication of like, do you know this is happening? Are you taking steps to change it? Are you like, is there going to be is there a light at the end of this tunnel at all if people can't get one? Like, I think people just like some information.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can understand that. Particularly people who've been trying for 5 months to get one and haven't got one yet. But my advice definitely is to just chill, wait until Ratchet starts creeping up, and then dive in and try to get them. Just let all these people run themselves ragged over the next couple months. That means that there'll be less demand for it when you go to find one, and it'll all be good. Hopefully you'll get one just in time for Ratchet. But that's the latest.
It's weird to think, because September was when we were doing all the, our pre-order mad scramble day for the new systems. And like, that was further from today than that day was from the beginning of the pandemic.
Yep. It's crazy.
Like 7 months versus 6. Like, been doing this a long time.
I mean, all electronics are having this problem. There's just not enough chips for anything right now. GPUs having the same problem. Phones having the same problem.
Yeah. Even hard drives.
Yep.
You're running into a problem. And some of it is like the Bitcoin nonsense. But it's getting harder. It's getting almost impossible to just build a PC anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're not even just in competition for the graphics cards anymore. Now you're after the CPUs and the hard drives and the SSD stuff. It's like, it's ridiculous. The RAM.
Really wish I had bought a Bitcoin like 8 months ago when they were $6,000.
I wish I bought them when they were like $20.
I have a friend who has like 20 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because he bought them when they were like $5.
Good luck getting any actual money out of that.
I mean, you can sell them. You can absolutely sell them.
You got to find someone to buy them first.
Yeah, but the exchanges do that for you. People are buying them still. But
they don't just hand over cash. It's very hard to get a decent rate out of trying to actually sell them for cash. Yeah. Like it's not an instant cash in thing. I got some people that tried to do that because they're like, I got all this stuff and I'm going to totally cash in. They couldn't get any money out of it, really.
Any?
Not much. I mean, they got a couple $1,000s, but their stuff they had was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But they can't get that money.
Huh.
Because you can't just dump Bitcoin that easily.
Yeah. I mean, they're not like stocks or whatever. You have to find a buyer for it. But there's plenty of buyers. Everyone's buying Bitcoin right now.
But also they're actively discouraging dumping. So you're going to have to find someone that's willing to do that transaction, and that's been part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's kind of a cult. And trying to get out of the cult by selling off your Bitcoin is going to be frowned on by the people you're going to need to rely on to make that transaction.
Well, it was like Wall Street bets with GameStop. How they were like, they were basically demanding people on Reddit to not sell the stock so it would keep going up. And most people were like, screw you, man. I just became a millionaire in like 2 days. I'm cashing out, bro. And I don't blame them one bit. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about CD Projekt RED, which has been, for the most part, pretty much a disaster for the last 8 months, unless you're the bank. So CD Projekt RED announced its financials this week, and if you're hoping that it was going to do poorly because it released an unfinished game and had to return a bunch of those, or accept returns for a bunch of those, you're going to be sorely disappointed. CD Projekt RED turned a profit of $303 million for the year. It triples.
That's profit, not revenue.
Profit. The revenue was $562 million. So you figure there's $260 million extra there. A lot of that were probably returns, that they had to return the game and refund the money. Still, turned a profit of $303 million for the year. It's triples the highest profit CD Projekt RED has ever had in a year. I'll give you one guess what the record was before that. 2015. That's when The Witcher 3 came out. It was also on store shelves for like a fraction of the time that The Witcher 3 was on. You remember, Cyberpunk launched December 10th. It had 3 weeks on the market.
Witcher 3 launched in May. So,
yes,
a lot more time.
It's insane.
I mean, it was the most anticipated game in ever.
8 million pre-sales. 8 million pre-sales it had. It's insane, dude. So the revenue was 4 times what its best ever, and it's 4 times what they made in 2019, and 2.5 times its prior record with The Witcher 3 in 2015. And then profit was triple the profit it had in 2015. What have we learned from this, Matt?
You don't know if the game's broke until you buy it.
What lessons can we take away from this? Because look, what lesson did CD Projekt RED learn? Nothing. It learned it can get away with anything at this point. It can release a completely broken, unfinished game, and as long as it manages the hype cycle correctly, it won't matter one bit.
Well, that's kind of, this is sort of how it goes. It's not a lesson. It's just the nature of, it's sort of like, movies that have big opening weekends doesn't mean the movie's good. It means people want to see it. In this case, and then you got to look at like, what's the drop like in the second weekend? In the case of a game like this, it's not as immediate. The second weekend isn't really the killer. What you're doing is you got to look down the road and how's your next game going to be received? So if you're CD Projekt RED, I think that's what you're probably, that's why you're making good on all this stuff with Cyberpunk, is because you want sales like that to continue to grow for your next whatever that may be, Witcher 4 or whatever the next thing they put out is, because the nature of how Witcher 2 grew over Witcher 1, Witcher 3 grew over Witcher 2, Cyberpunk really grew over Witcher 3. If you then deliver your next project and it's substantially less than Cyberpunk or possibly less than Witcher 3, your shareholders and your investors are going to be like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, that looks really bad. And that's where it hurts. So they want that, they want the confidence of the people back so that they don't look terrible in the next time they release some kind of product. Yeah, they made money, but it's sort of the same thing with like No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky made Hello Games a ton of money. It sold like crazy, and everybody thought that was the worst thing they'd ever played. And again, Hello Games made good and fixed the game and went above and beyond on that. But Hello Games made their money off that thing. Like, they could have walked away and just said, "Have fun with the broken game. We don't care." But they didn't. And neither CD Projekt RED. It's just, it didn't take a while.
I don't know, man. They just released that patch and it like broke just as much stuff as it fixed. Like, I don't know if this game is fixable, Matt.
I don't know. Like, I'm waiting for the. I mean, there's no reason it isn't. I'm waiting for the next gen patch before I jump back into that thing. All the patch stuff they're doing now is just fixing, quest bugs and, things that break the game, break progress and stuff like that. None of the patches they're doing right now are particularly exciting. Right. That's for sure, because they're just trying to get the game up to code, essentially.
They're trying to finish the game, essentially.
Yeah. It's like you're trying to basically, it's like we want to see what the house looks like with the new coat of paint and all the new landscaping. They're like, we have to make sure the ceiling doesn't collapse first.
Yeah,
so like, it's not
the electrical doesn't cause a house fire and burn it all down.
Like, that's really what we got to get all the dead dogs out of the basement. It's just there's a lot of work to do before we can worry about what the shrubs look like. You know what I mean? So for us, I'm waiting for the next gen patch, whenever that may be, later, end of this year, next year maybe, who knows? But I already played 40 hours of the damn thing. I don't need to do it anymore until they substantially.
I finished it already, so it's like whatever to me. But I know there's a lot of people like you who kind of put it on hold because they got sick of dealing with the bugs or whatever. Mm-hmm. Matt, if you're CD Projekt RED, what do you do going forward? Because you bring up a good point. Consumer confidence in CD Projekt RED is at rock bottom. So if you're CD Projekt RED, how do you fix that? I mean, obviously, not giving up on Cyberpunk 2077 is a start, but here we are 4 months later, and it's still not fixed. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I didn't expect it to be, really.
I mean, I figured by now the game would be way better than it is. Like, I didn't think it would still just be littered with crash bugs at this point. I figured by now they would have squashed most of those bugs.
I think they have, but there's still a lot in there anyway. And any kind of patch, Witcher 3 used to do that too. They put up big fixed things and it would break something else. I don't think they ever quite got the HDR on the Xbox One version fixed again.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the nature of the beast. I think you keep plugging away at that. I don't know if you ever hit a point where you can announce that the game is finished or fixed or whatever. Yeah, like
a year later.
There's no clean way to do that, right?
That's what I'm asking. Like, how do you fix this? Like, I don't know if you can.
I think you just keep doing, you keep patching and patching until I think you feel like it's up to par, and then you do the next gen patch. And I think the next gen patch you use sort of the same way that No Man's Sky used Beyond, that you kind of treat it as sort of a soft relaunch sort of thing and say like, okay, it looks like this is what it looks like, and it's ready for all systems, and like if you try it again, blah, 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 blah. And then you kind of hope that people forgive it a little bit. And then moving forward, as you get your next project in line, I think maybe you announce what it is or do a little teaser trailer. But again, going with my Fallout 4 plan thing, I don't think you show that game until it's real close to done. And when you do show it, you play it live, real time. Like, you play the actual game. You don't do some kind of planned demo thing. You put the game in the system and you play the damn thing, and you just show what it looks like and how it works, warts and all. And then you release it 6 months later and hope that people are willing to believe you again. There's not much else you can do.
The only thing that's really going to come are bringing up the media and the media's culpability in the hype levels for Cyberpunk. How do you feel like CD Projekt RED should address that? One thing I would say is the press. You should probably let the press play it. Yeah, you should
but also, like, I find that to be a bit of a red herring, because like, the press was reacting to the people who were hyped about the game. Like, the reason you saw the game hyped up by the press is because people were hyping it up independently of that. Like, as Sessler pointed out, like, the most talked about game on the internet always is Fortnite, until they showed Cyberpunk at that Xbox conference, and then Cyberpunk was the only game that ever got talked about more than Fortnite for any amount of time ever. And that was not the media. That was not press stuff. That was people saw the thing and freaked out about it.
Yeah.
That was social media. No one controlled that. That was people independently getting hyped about a game they're excited about. And so the media is going to clickbait that, obviously. But it's not what led to this.
I mean,
that
also,
is not what caused
holding the press
this.
Accountable for what happened with Cyberpunk, it's like you're telling someone to never believe anything that they see or that they're told. Like, at a certain point, you have to trust what someone is telling you. How can you operate if just everything someone tells you or shows you, you assume is a lie or is fake? Like,
well, and also because what happened with this game is unprecedented. Like, Sony never had to pull something off the store like that before. Right. Like, that's not a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that? Like, why would, I mean, I guess like you could have a Schreier like type figure like digging into this and like, skulking around the air ducts of CD Projekt RED. There's no way to know that. And part of it is because they don't let anybody really touch it before it's done or before it's released.
I would argue some of the press, even after they did play it and realized that it was broken, went a little too easy on the game.
Somewhat, but also there were people who did not go easy on it and gave it like 6s and 7s, and they got death threats for that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm not really willing to entertain that too much. Like, the problem was the people here in terms of hyping the stuff up and then not being willing to believe the negative reviews that came out about it until everybody got in their hands. They're like, oh, yeah, she was right. It's garbage.
I mean, blaming the press for this, let's be honest, it's victim blaming. Instead of blaming the entity or the person who caused the issue, you're blaming the people who had to react to their dishonesty. Like, that's not how it's supposed to work. It's like, if CD Projekt RED wasn't deceitful, then you wouldn't have felt deceived by the journalists. It's all started with CD Projekt RED. And I would argue, one, the journalists need to be allowed to play their next game before it comes out.
Yeah.
I would also argue that, to your point,
you need like an event that's like freely everybody, all the press is playing it live, all in the same room, and you're allowed to take video and shoot everybody playing. Like, no barriers.
And people are allowed to publish the video, because that was another thing. Remember, like, they were very strict with like their footage guidelines for the video reviews, and we're like, hey, here's this package of footage that we captured that you can use in your video, because they didn't want people to show all the bugs.
Well, so I think the solution from CD Projekt's end is like all that stuff where you like super secretive and only get this, you can't show this, all that's gone. You're done. You blew your privilege on. You blew your privileges for having that. Now you have to like be completely open on this and let everybody who's willing to get their hands on it, press, influencers, Twitch people, YouTube people, everyone. Like, you have to get the word out through everyone you can that this game works. It's not a bug fest. It's not garbage. It's not like Cyberpunk. They've made a turnaround. You have to do that. That's the only way to repair, at least in the core gaming world. It's the only way to repair that kind of trust to any degree. And I don't think it'll work fully either. I think there will still be people who are skeptical, and rightly so.
They should be.
But you have to drop the shields.
Those closed door demos at E3. Like, how would I go into one of those now and feel like what I'm about to see is legit? Like, even if they had a
and I
disc.
say that for anyone, not just CD Projekt. I think CD Projekt ruined this for a lot
everyone.
of people.
Absolutely. Like, even if I went into one of those and I watched them physically put a disc in a system and watch the system boot it up, I would still be skeptical now that it's like faked somehow.
Yeah,
and that's because of CD Projekt RED. Yeah.
Well, also, when you say that, I will simply say in response to that, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Because I have always thought that when that happened, I always watch stuff like that with an eye of skepticism to some degree.
I mean, I've always been skeptical. Like, when they play it, I watch them play to see if what's happening on screen is matching what they're doing with the controller or the mouse and keyboard.
Right, but also what you're seeing in situations like that is very controlled and not always what you might be getting on the disc when you buy it from a store. And I'm aware that I grew up in the media. We both grew up in a media world where everything was everything I loved growing up as a kid was designed to sell me shit. Yeah. I was well aware of that. You learn that there's a caveat emptor undercurrent to our entire existence in this pop culture landscape. Sort of like how like you said, like your Philly instincts about he's going to come back and steal my PS5. That's how I feel about being marketed to all the time by every game company.
I feel like that too. I keep going back to one of the very final episodes of Bonus Round that ever happened at GT. I had already left there, and Jeff had invited me back to be on the show. And I was on there with like an influencer who I don't remember. I think it was someone from like Rooster Teeth or something, and Andrea Renee. And I remember, like, even during the show, but especially after the show, everybody there was like, "You're so skeptical." And I was like, yeah, it's called being a journalist. That's what you do. You don't just accept everything that they tell you. And so I am very skeptical, and still this happens. So I don't think that there is any fixing it, Matt. I really don't think there is. I don't think there's any way CD Projekt RED ever gets 8 million pre-orders for a game ever. I would be surprised if CD Projekt RED ever gets 4 million pre-orders for a game ever again. This burn goes too deep for too many people, because when their next game rolls around, what are all the people like us on podcasts going to be saying? I don't trust it. I don't trust them. Next time I see a CD Projekt RED game for the first time, I'm going to be like, that might be real.
Right. Here's the thing, though. This will be a very interesting test of something I've been curious about for a long time, and that is how much any of this shit matters.
Right.
Because
that's the lower third. You can't see it right now. Says lesson not learned.
Right, but like I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the fact that the people, as I say over and over again, the people who make these things critical mass hits, millions and millions, tens of millions of copies sold, don't listen to these podcasts. They don't read these reviews. They don't do any of that.
They don't. So, but I'll say this: my friend who falls into that group called me and was like, "That game's a piece of shit."
Right. Well, that's my question is there's two elements to that. First, will the mass audience that makes these things, these critical mass hits, will they have all kind of universally had that experience of Cyberpunk and then apply it to the same company later? Will they even realize that The Witcher 4 is made by the same people that made this game?
That's a good point.
Further,
you might want to bury that in the opening credits.
You could get away with that to some degree. The other thing is, will those people hold that grudge or hold that accountability in their minds 4 years later? Will it matter to them when will it matter to them when they see another Witcher game after they like The Witcher 3 and they've watched 4 seasons of the Witcher Netflix show they love so much? Will it matter? Will it hold them back anymore? I would say they got a pretty good shot at getting 6 million pre-orders. My thing is, like, the only thing that can really fix it to any appreciable degree is if the next game is good out of the gate.
Yes, polished out of the gate.
Like, the next game is a make good. Like, you cannot expect record-setting pre-order numbers or launch day numbers out of the next game, because that's the game that's going to get you those numbers back maybe next time.
So we'll expect to play The Witcher 4 in about 2027, is what you're saying.
Yeah, we'll see. See, it'll be a nice end of PS5 life game, and we'll see if they've learned anything by then.
That's how long it would probably take, one, for the stink to wear off of what happened, and two, for me to even have a modicum of trust for CD Projekt RED.
Although, look, and we'll see, because even every time No Man's Sky puts a new update out, you still get a little flood of people talking about it's the worst game they've ever played, but they haven't played it since 2016, and that was 5 years ago. So people do remember when something they're very excited about turns out to be a dog. Yeah. So I mean, I'll tell you this much: we're never going to see another Cyberpunk game again.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see a sequel.
I wouldn't. If I were them, I would never touch that IP again.
Yeah. And after what's happened, I don't blame them. I would say this, though. I would like to see another one. I hate to
I'd love to see them try it again, or someone try it again.
Through all this, I still liked the game. Like, there are some genuinely moving moments in the game. I liked the setting still. It was just garbage.
I would love an approach to Cyberpunk of that ambition level, but like that actually deals with a cyberpunk setting that has relevance to today and isn't like a throwback to like 1988.
Right. Yeah.
I just found it a little too retro to be of any value to me in terms of that. Like, it was nice to see, but it just felt paper thin in terms of what it had to say, if anything. It was entirely about the characters as far as I played, which is fine. Like, you can do that.
Yeah, I was okay with that. I didn't have a problem with that.
But it just, like, there seemed to be there's a little more meat on the thematic bone on Witcher. And,
I'd agree. I agree 1,000%. Yep.
I just felt Cyberpunk, which is fun, but like Cyberpunk shouldn't be that. Like, Cyberpunk should have more meat on it in that regard.
There was
Cyberpunk,
certainly the opportunity for it, for sure.
Yeah, you have the opportunity to really make some social commentary and some political commentary with the Cyberpunk setting of any nature, and they just dodged it. Like,
There's
they
a little bit of
it,
but not
a little
enough.
bit. But it was like playing Far Cry 5. It's like you had the opportunity to really go for the jugular on a couple of these things, and all you did was just sort of dance around it. That's just disappointing.
That's right. That's an accurate assessment, I would say. So, yeah, I don't know. CD Projekt RED has a lot to repair, and I know their financials probably for next year are not going to be as rosy as they were for 2020. So
no, although you would kind of think, when you release like two games a decade, you wonder what you expect your financials to look like anyway. And I guess we'll see. It's not like they didn't put anything else. They put out the Gwent game, and they put out that Thronebreaker. Not that did particularly well.
Yeah, it's not going to refill the coffers.
No, but I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go from there.
Now in Canada, maybe they can get up there.
We'll see if that helps. Maybe it won't be 2027. Maybe it'll be like 2025. I don't know.
I hope so. But
they need to turn this stuff around. I think I said one of the last couple conversations about this stuff is like, this is sort of the worst case scenario of a company that does big AAA stuff that they bet all their money on it. Every time you put out a release, it's make or break. Rockstar does that, but Rockstar
they hit the jackpot, though. I mean,
right.
Their reputation may be in the toilet, but they hit the jackpot.
But now you can't confidently make that big bet on the next project.
Yep.
Like, that's the problem.
It's not neither can consumers. And
you can't retroactively get punished for something that you have to buy to know whether it's good or not.
Yeah.
You have to look forward. The rep has to move forward, and you have to it's also like kind of the paradox of capitalism and the paradox of investors' expectations is they just expect infinite growth.
Yeah.
And if you're doing, and especially in a situation like this,
that's a huge spike from The Witcher 3.
Right, but are they going to get that on their next project? Is what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, that's you got to look years down the line and say, like, this is not. This game's situation did not negatively impact their bottom line. It didn't threaten the company's existence. But if they don't create more growth for the next project, it might. That might, even if it's successful, even if you get 4 million, how many games would be thrilled with 4 million pre-orders?
All of them.
But 4 million pre-orders for The Witcher 4 is going to be a failure.
It would be at this point, yeah. But you know what? Maybe the game comes out and it's actually good, and then they do more sales post-release than they are with Cyberpunk.
I think that's their only hope here.
Yeah.
I think that's where they have to aim.
That's probably the strategy that they should try to deploy. Try to keep the pre-release hype. You don't want it to be a minimum, but keep it from entering the stratosphere.
You want the hype to kind of evolve naturally, and you want to have the transparency and drop the shields and stop being all about embargo nonsense and acting. Because like there was some arrogance there on their part, where it's like they knew they didn't need the press, they didn't need anyone. All they needed to do was say, "We made The Witcher 3, and we're making this now, and you're going to want it, and give us your money."
They also knew they had a busted game.
Yeah. So, like, that's the other thing is like
plenty of arrogance
even when I sit in a lot of those things like and look at the demos and stuff and I'm skeptical about it. I'm like, I don't know if you're really showing me what you're really showing me. 99% of the time, what actually does hit store shelves and such has had those issues addressed to some degree or another. If the biggest difference is like the puddles slightly less reflective or the lighting slightly different in a forest somewhere, I can live with that. This is the first time I can recall that someone made that big bet and really did not deliver in any appreciable way. It's astounding.
It is. All right, we got to move on. We're going to talk next about the only kind of big game that was really announced this week, and that is, dun dun dun, a remake of House of the Dead. And we're going to discuss that very briefly, Matt. But really what I want to discuss is the fact that light gun games have pretty much disappeared and why. But first of all, are you excited about this remake of House of the Dead? This is a Switch exclusive, by the way. It's coming before the end of 2021.
I mean, I guess I like the House of the Dead games. I like light gun games. I mean, the Switch makes sense for that, considering how the Joy-Cons work. So,
I mean, it's a perfect system for it. So I get why it's a Switch exclusive. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only system for it, really. I mean, I guess you could do something with like the Sony motion controllers, I guess, but who the hell has those anymore other than like us weird VR people?
I mean, they still release light gun games on systems that just have analog stick controllers. You can play them. I mean, it's like, and that's what I want to talk about when we talk about the bigger thing about light gun games is why this genre has gone away when there are first-person shooters are, in a lot of cases, are dominating the industry as far as sales are concerned, because that's really all it is. It's just a different way to display a first-person shooter. You're just not mobile or as mobile as you are in a lot of other shooters. Let's go back to House of the Dead first, though. Don't you think the camp and the awkwardness is a big part of the charm in the House of the Dead? The strange voiceover and like the bad translation and...
I guess. I mean, is it just the first one they're doing here?
Yeah.
That's a shame. The second one's the best one.
It is, for sure.
Actually, the best one is Overkill, but that's sort of a different thing. The Grindhouse one was my favorite one. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's part of the bad translation. I still think is not fully intentional in the originals.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not intentional.
And I think some of it is like
that's part of its charm, though.
In 2, everybody makes fun of what's his name, the bad guy.
Oh, C or whatever his name is. It's like one letter.
G is the guy, one of the main characters in the first one who dies in the beginning of the second one. We're meeting G over there. The bad guy is the business guy who has a weird name, but he does like dogs of the AMS. Time they made a move, and I honestly believe that guy's a computer voice. I don't think it's a real voice actor. Suffer like G did.
That's the big meme from the game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little much, but I like light gun games. I've always enjoyed kind of that how that plays time crunch, and like they do still get made. You see them in arcades still. They just don't come home because they're sort of specific to the arcade now.
What new light gun games are there in arcades?
They did like a Transformers one for the movie.
Really?
They did a Silent Hill one. They did, they're like big sit down things. They look like photo booths, but you see them in like arcade family fun center. Well, you did until the pandemic. I don't know what that's going to look like, but there were still new ones coming out periodically. There was a
like I always saw just
World
the old ones still in the arcade.
No, I mean, I'm talking like last 10 years, they still get made. Okay. I used to go out to, God, what is that one out in San Gabriel Valley? There's an arcade out there. I think, is it 1UP or...
I mean, there's been a few for consoles.
Ready Player, not Red. That's a stupid book. Player 1UP or something. I don't know. There's a big one. It has a lot of imported Japanese games over there and like crane games and stuff. And they have all the current like sit down light gun stuff, which it is still made. It's just not particularly popular or common. Also, they're like $1 per play. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like it's
on consoles. The genre kind of died with the Wii. Like right now, we're checking out B-roll of the Dead Space light gun game. What was it called? Mm-hmm. Dead Space Extraction, I think.
That sounds right. Yeah, and I have a bunch of them on. I think I had all the House of the Deads on the PS3. Because
was there a collection release for PS3?
Either a collection or it was all of them separately or whatever. I think there was something like that. But I have, having just gone through my PS3, I definitely have 1, 2, 3 and Overkill on that. And that was because I had like the light gun, the gun attachment things you could put the PlayStation Move in and use it as a light gun, which works really well. Like it's a little heavy, but like it worked. It was cool.
And then there was
that would be the main thing I keep my PS3
Umbrella
for.
Chronicles, I think. That's kind
Umbrella
of a
Chronicles, yeah, like those are good. But Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Side Chronicles, I think, was the second one.
Yeah. But other than that, like they've just disappeared. Why do you think that is?
The main reason is because light guns stopped working on LCD screens.
Right.
Like the way old light guns worked was you basically flashed a white screen on the CRT, and it detected which pixel of it was being contacted by the light beam that came out of the gun. And that's how it knew where you were shooting. And that no longer worked on LCD screens. So you had to do a different sort of feedback system. And so you couldn't keep moving the light guns forward that you already had. And then in conjunction with that, the light gun game was sort of waning a little bit. And you hit a point where you couldn't put out a peripheral with a light gun that worked on both the CRT and the LED screens or the flat screens, plasma screens and stuff. And as a matter of fact, I think my projection LED, there was no way to do it at all. And then by the time everybody sort of had transitioned to the new TVs and you could make light guns that took advantage of them, the light gun game craze was kind of over. Mm-hmm. Because there was a time when they were a big deal. I played tons of Time Crisis.
Arcades.
They were huge on the PS1. I remember I bring the PS1 to parties sometimes, and people would just sit in the corner and play Point Blank and Time Crisis all night. They were a big deal for a time. And I always liked them. I miss them. I
spent hundreds of dollars on them in arcades.
I'd love to see if this House of the Dead remake brings back a light gun renaissance on Switch. I would love to see that. I would be totally into that.
Do you think that'll happen though? Do you think there's a
desire
for light gun games?
I mean, maybe. Look, the Switch has made weirder things blow up.
It's true.
Yeah, that's all I can say about that. I mean, I don't, I would like it to happen because I like those games, but I'm not going to say how likely it is. But would I have thought Ring Fit would have blown up? No. Would I? There's an element of unpredictability to what the Switch audience will embrace, and I'm just kind of saying, fingers crossed they embrace this because I would like to play some of those games again.
And in chat, Immortal Joe brings up a good point. He has a Switch Lite, so.
Yeah, so you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, you can't. It does kind of limit a portion of the Switch audience to people who just bought the handheld one that you can't dock.
Well, I mean, also you're playing that console. There's no I would definitely not want to try to play it with the Switch on a table or something. That would be
trying to aim at that little dinky.
I'm not that precise in my old age, so
I don't think anybody is, Matt. You just have to move the Joy-Con about a millimeter and you'd be off the screen. I just don't think that's going to work for anyone.
I mean, I guess maybe you could do it as like a tap.
Yeah,
you could tap your finger, but that feels like cheating.
Yeah, I don't know. I struggle to see why this genre has died essentially. I think
it's just because it's a peripheral that nobody wants. And it's a specialized peripheral you can't use for anything else.
That is a good point. And it's with the Switch, the Joy-Cons just do it organically.
Right.
So everybody's
it's the mobile gaming thing again. You already have it.
Yeah. Now, would you prefer if they released some kind of a plastic shell to snap the Joy-Con into to play this, or are you cool?
Yes, I would get that.
You prefer having that sort of tactile feedback?
I prefer having the gun in my hand. Yeah.
Interesting.
And now that is mostly because I'm trying to replicate the feel of playing the old arcade games. I'm not saying that's necessarily like a required way to play them. I'm sure just holding the Joy-Con and doing that is going to be fine in terms of controls. When I play those games, I like to kind of have a little nostalgia trip, and that involves holding a plastic pistol to me.
Which one was the one where was it Time Crisis where you had to point off screen and fire to reload?
Oh, most of them.
Yeah, why is that? Why is the mechanic that you have to point it off screen and shoot to reload?
Because it's a way to kind of it's a way to indicate intention.
Okay.
If you're pulling this, it knows when you pull the trigger and not pointing at the screen, it knows that's what you want to do. And it's a way of doing it without putting another button on the thing.
I think that's probably the bigger thing. How expensive is it to put a button on the side of the gun?
Because Time Crisis, you reloaded with the pedal.
Right. Well, you also ducked with the thing.
You ducked, but when you ducked back, you reloaded.
Yeah, right.
If I remember right.
Yeah. These were kind of the first motion control active games too.
Mm-hmm.
If you think back, you had that paddle that you would press with your foot and make the character duck. I would get hot and sweaty playing these games in the arcade. They're kind of
eventually they games like that after a while did use motion control sensors so you could duck and move in person and not use the pedal. Not Time Crisis, but I played a couple games like that. Police Trainer was like that too.
It might be a case too, I think, of these games were designed to munch quarters, and they were very, very effective at that. I've literally, as I said, I've spent hundreds of dollars playing light gun games in the arcade, and a lot of arcade games when they come home, they don't have the same appeal, or part of the problem is that they're just ports from the arcade where they were designed for, getting another quarter out of your pocket instead of just enjoying yourself while you're sitting on the couch. I think that's...
And even if you do, it's also like sometimes arcade games like that, once you have unlimited continues,
they lose their charm.
You're done in like 2 hours and you paid $60 for it.
Yeah.
So, and I think, like the Dreamcast versions of some of those games, like did a good job of adding, like House of the Dead had like various other modes and like challenge modes, and you have limited credits and, remix stuff and boss rush stuff. They added stuff to try to make it more of a value of a package. I don't know how well they succeeded at all that. I have light guns for the Dreamcast somewhere too. I just thought of that.
You're right, though. All these games were designed to kill you a lot. So you have to
but
keep
those
putting
don't work
quarters
on
in.
like
And
any
also,
TV
it
I
takes
own
forever
anymore.
to beat them when you're dying and putting quarters in. But when you can just continue as much as you want, it kind of loses a little bit of its allure. Yeah,
there's just a little bit of that, that it's almost like a gambling rush where it's like, how long can you last?
Yeah.
On the money you just put in this machine. And if you lose that aspect, it's less fun. Also, you're usually out, you're with your friends, you're playing in the big loud arcade, and like you're drinking sometimes, depending if you're, Dave and Buster's or whatever. It's just not the same thing, at home. I feel like the participate with plastic object game that really took off at home was Rock Band and Guitar Hero, which is a similar thing. It feels like something that should be an arcade experience, but it's not, because there are Guitar Hero games in the arcade, but you can't hear the damn music. So,
and they're usually just, you play by yourself too. You
play by yourself. You play 2-player with 2 guitars, and the guitars are always broken.
Yep.
It was just
covered
that's
in
kind
Rona
of a similar
at this
thing.
point.
Right. Yeah. It's like that's not a thing anybody wants to do anymore without dousing the Stratocaster in a. You just have a giant, like 6-foot tub of sanitizer.
Dunk it into it.
Dunk it in and pull it up, like whip it off, and there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Do you miss light gun games really though?
I do sometimes. Like I thought of that. Actually, it was funny. I thought of that going through the PS3 last week, like because they're all still installed on there, and I'm like, oh, that would. Yeah, I remember House of the Dead 2 and Overkill. That'd be fun to play those again. I'm like, I'm not going to dig into that drawer and find the Move controllers and charge them up and get the plastic gun shells, and because I got 2 of them. That's actually, believe it or not, that is the reason I bought PlayStation Move controllers. I bought them to play those House of the Dead games, the light gun games, and I bought the 2 shells so I could fucking John Woo it. Like that's why I bought, because I always wanted to do that in the arcade, but I didn't want to spend the quarters to do it.
Yep.
And sure enough. It's a terrible way to play them because you can't aim properly. Because guess what? No one can aim with 2 guns like that. Like that's not how anything works. But it's fun when you just like doing that. So yeah, it's actually why I own I use the PlayStation Move stuff for the PSVR stuff. But the reason I have those controllers is to play House of the Dead.
Gotcha. So there you go. Remake of House of the Dead coming to Switch before the end of 2021. Not developed in-house by Sega. But they have a pretty good partner working on it. So my guess is the game should turn out pretty well. But as always, with that genre, your mileage will vary. Next up.
I wish it had like all 3 of them or something. I wish it was. I mean, I like how the first House of the Dead, but it's no House of the Dead 2.
Yep.
2 is so good.
Yep. Well, maybe they can improve some stuff in the remake, so there won't be as disparity between the 2 games.
Yeah.
We'll see. Next up, we're going to talk briefly about something that happened with Path of Exile. Path of Exile has been going through a really, really rough patch here over the last couple of weeks. It launched a new expansion pack called Ultimatum. And when the expansion launched, it was a complete disaster. People weren't able to get into queues, and people weren't able to access content. There was a bunch of issues around it. But then that kind of came to a head over the weekend when they finally got it up and working. The server queues were still literally, Matt, 2 hours long.
That's crazy for that game.
For those of you who don't know, Path of Exile is basically a Diablo-like. It's an isometric action RPG. It's been around for a long time at this point. In fact, Path of Exile 2 is just about ready for release at this point. They've been working on it for quite a while. But they released an expansion for this. Players could not get in. The queue was 2 hours long. And then suddenly, players started noticing that streamers were able to jump the queue and were able to play. And so it started this huge uproar on social media among fans of Path of Exile. And again, in yet another decision, a boneheaded decision from a game company, where immediately the feedback became clear and they basically changed their tact on it. The studio behind Path of Exile was like, yep, we screwed up. We made a huge mistake. We never should have let the streamers go before everybody else. And to their credit, look, if we're going to talk about this, I want to make sure that I put into the record what their response was about this, because they do explain what happened.
Are these the same people that are responsible for sending Pactor's PS5?
They might be. So here was their statement. We have recently been doing some proper paid influencer marketing, had arranged to pay for 2 hours of streaming. We ran right into a login queue that would take 2 hours to clear. This was about as close as you could get to literally setting a big pile of money on fire. So basically they had a 2-hour window that they had already paid for streamers to stream the game. If they weren't able to play, they would be out of the contract, the streamers would be, because they were there ready to play, and they would still owe the streamers the money. So we made the hasty decision to allow those streamers to bypass the queue. Most streamers did not ask for this. It's very good that they said this. Although they do say most streamers did not ask for this, so there were some that did. We also allowed some other streamers who weren't involved in the campaign to skip the queue too, so they weren't on the back foot. We tell people the Path of Exile starts are a fair playing field for everyone, and we need to actually make sure that that is a reality. We will not allow streamers to bypass the login queue in the future. We will instead make sure that the queue works much better. This post has had no intention of trying to convince you to be happy with these outcomes. We simply want to provide you with the insight about what happened, why it happened, and what we're doing about it in the future. We're very unhappy with it too. How do you feel about all that?
Man, it's a good response, considering I don't really have a problem with what they did. Like, I mean, at that point, those streamers are essentially employees, like contracted employees, and they wanted to let the people who they were paying to play the game for promotional purposes to play the game, and so they did. Like, it's the same. It's like I wouldn't be mad if they let like one of their developers jump the queue either. Like I don't really care, but
how do you have a 2-hour queue for a game that's this old? Like, get your shit in order.
That is a good question. Maybe they didn't expect it to be that popular either. Like, because I'll tell you, I mean, I do play Path of Exile periodically. I still play it. I backed it even, I think, on Kickstarter. And periodically, like, I play it, and like, yeah, there's not a line to get into that game. Like, that's what? Like, there's barely anybody on. Like, that's when I read this story, the most amazing thing to me that anybody had to be in a queue to play Path of
Exile. And I mean, it is pretty bizarre. I mean, maybe that's a testament to their game. They have a really dedicated fan base. But no matter how dedicated it is, there's no way there should be a 2-hour wait. So this was a double ball drop on the part of the studio.
I mean, it does happen. I mean, last time one of the updates went up for Final Fantasy 14, I had to wait an hour to get into the damn thing.
That's crazy.
It's just, these MMOs have such, not that Path of Exile is a traditional MMO, but like, a lot of these online games sort of settle into like the amount of audience they have on a regular daily basis, and like they're not ready for the idea that someone might care like if they do new stuff. It's a weird situation. When I first read about this, I had to double check that they were actually talking about Path of Exile. I'm like, this is about Path of Exile. Did I get the wrong article? Like, it's just it's so mind-boggling to me that Path of Exile had a rush like that. It's crazy.
How do you feel about them letting the streamers jump the queue? Was the amount of money they had invested in it a worthy excuse?
Yeah, I mean, how many streamers are we talking about here?
Like, I'm guessing they didn't say actually. But I'm guessing.
Like, if you're talking about like 20, 30, 40 people, it gives a shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a sunk cost at that point.
Yeah.
If you're talking 1,000 people that you paid.
Yeah, if you're thousands of streamers, I feel like you probably didn't pay thousands of streamers to do that.
Yeah.
But it sounds
My
like
guess is max 100 of them.
Yeah, I just sound like a handful of people, and like they let them in because they had a paid deal in place. That doesn't seem all that unreasonable to me. I recognize that I am not a person screaming on the internet about it who's waiting to get to play Path of Exile. But I'm sorry. I don't mean to belittle it, but it's just like the idea of being that upset that I can't play Path of Exile is funny to me.
I mean, my guess is they had 5 to 10 streamers. And,
yeah, that's what I figured.
And I would argue that if that is the case, that they should have just eaten the money and not let the streamers jump in queue. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can't be that big of a loss of money. If the loss, here, I'll put it this way.
How about this? If you've already got people waiting 2 hours to get in your game, you probably don't need the streamers to promote it.
Yeah, you really don't need them anyway. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. And I would also argue that if it was $100,000 or less, eat it. Like, don't like piss off your entire community because you have a deal for $100,000. You don't want all your customers to go away, and then you have no one there for Path of Exile too.
I mean, part of this just seemed like people getting mad about streamers.
Yeah.
Like, it's like people hate streamers. And so it's just like,
people hate influencers.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, like,
why are they in preferential treatment just because they have a big following?
Because they got money spent. They're basically contracted employees, and they need to get in there and do their job, basically.
Speaking of
think
people
that job
who are...
is stupid, but it's still what happens. It's money changing hands. Like if I'm going to a game event where everybody's waiting 3 hours in line to get in, but I need to get in and shoot something with a camera crew, like I'm not going to wait in that line, and you're going to have to deal with it. Like.
Yep.
Like, as someone who skipped a lot of lines because of what my profession is, like, that's just how it goes.
Okay, so speaking of people who are not happy with influencers right now, I just got a text from Michael Pachter. Apparently he's been watching GameFace today. What's up, Pac? Because he texted me, now you have to start playing Empires and Puzzles. You have to do it to talk about it. Sending an invite now. And there it is, the invite for Empires and Puzzles on my phone.
There you go.
What's up, Pac? Much love, man. So that's funny. But anyway, that's pretty good, Pac.
And that's how Shane got addicted to Empire and Puzzles.
I think I may actually play it now. You gotta love Pac.
You should hold out for that $200 again.
Why are you guys all firing off the Pac emoji in the chat forum right now? There's a Pacter head emoji in our chat that you guys have earned from all the crazy bits that everyone has given out in the hype trains. That you guys should all have it. But anyway, what's up, Pacter? Hope you're having a good afternoon, man. Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. Like That's funny. I agree with you. Like if it's $100,000 or less, just eat it and let everybody in. Like, to your point, if you have that many people in a queue, then there's people just want to play it already. Like you're going to make your money off of it anyway. So it was a bad move. I think they cleaned it up pretty well, though. They did about the best
that's a good statement. I mean, as apologies for things go, like I thought that was pretty well written.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So there you go. Like I said, we're going to talk briefly about it, but that's the latest on that game. And also, don't forget that the sequel's coming up. And if you want to see coverage on that, there's a game page on Sifted with tons of coverage of it already.
And I wouldn't wait 2 hours for it, but Path of Exile is really good. And it's free to play. So if you haven't played it, give it a try. It's actually, if you like the old Diablo stuff, I think it scratches the itch pretty well.
And it's not like there's anything else to play right now, so why not? All right, next up, we're going to follow up on something we talked about for a long time last week. In fact, we talked about it for like an hour, and that is the whole Sony. There we go. There's all the Pac emojis. Nice job, guys. I hope Pac's still on so he can see it. Some people posted like 20. Awesome. Anyway, so follow up on the Sony Bend story. So as we talked about last week, David Jaffe talked to one of the guys who had left Sony Bend amidst all the upheaval. And this week he followed up with the second guy who we also mentioned last week, and he had another discussion with him. Matt, one thing I will say is that there's a bit of a feud going on now between Jaffe and Jason Schreier. Because after Jaffe's interview with, what was his name, Jeff Ross, the first guy he talked to last week, Schreier went after him a little bit in another podcast and said, you shouldn't be listening to Jaffe, and yeah, he dug into Jaffe a little bit, and Jaffe's not the type to take that sitting down. So the next show that Jaffe did, the thumbnail was like this horribly distorted photo of like Jason Schreier's face, and like it got a little dirty. So anyway, in the midst of all that, he had another follow-up interview with somebody else who had left Sony Bend, and this one was a little more tame. Not much news came out of this, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's see. The guy's name was John Garvin. He was the lead writer on the game. He also, according to him, was the lead designer because he ended up saying that one of the things that he said that was really interesting, one was he basically said, look, if you guys want sequels to games, you need to buy the original at full price. That seemed to be a little controversial to some people, and Jaffe's reply to that was, well, how do we know if we should buy the game at full price if we haven't played it, or some crap like that? The same excuse that a lot of people...
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. It's true.
Like, you're buying something blind, it's like, it's one thing that seems like a very strange thing to say about Days Gone for two reasons. Number one, it's an unproven new IP. So how do you know, like Jaffe said, how do you know if I like it if I want to throw $60 at something, if there's no way to play it first? And number two, I am not happy I bought Days Gone for $60. Like, like I would like to see a Days Gone 2, but part of the reason I like to see a Days Gone 2 is to refine a lot of the unfinished concepts in the first game. Yeah. So no, I don't think that game was worth $60. So like, and like, yeah, it's like economically speaking, from a business standpoint, that is it's a truism. Yeah. If you want to see another one, everybody needs to buy it at the highest price possible and up those launch numbers. But that is a dumb thing to do if you're a consumer. Basically, if you're not already sure you're going to like something, like that's ridiculous to me. Like, okay, like well, then if you want me to buy that at $60, you need to make a better game.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with you, but I think a lot of people would disagree with you because there is a pretty large group of people who loved this game.
Yeah, but I don't think even the people who love that game are going to deny that it took a couple patches for it to be what they love.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You know, what was there at launch was not probably worth jumping into day one. Like even the people that really talk that game up as one of the best games of the year, in addition to being wrong, are like willing to admit in general that like it took some love and care to get it there over a couple of months.
Yeah. And I'd agree with that as well. I had a lot of problems with it when I played it at first. I don't think I ever finished it either. The game is gigantic.
No, I never finished. It's huge, and it's not fun to traverse, which is what that's what got me about that game. Is like I didn't mind playing it all that much, and I didn't once you get out of the section where like you're talking to Boozer all the time, and you've kind of gone to more camps, and you've still got more characters to deal with. I like that better. But I would hit points where I'd come back from a mission, and like the thought of having to go out there and like micromanage the bike's fuel again through the whole thing just was like it would just make me turn the game off. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Same exact for me. And look, John Garvin did address a lot of this stuff. He also said the game was originally supposed to be 80 hours long.
Good Lord, no one needs that.
He said Scott Rohde showed up and just started chopping. And he said as the person who wrote the game, it was very difficult because everything's tied together. He's like, if you cut out this conversation, then this thing that happens later doesn't make sense. And Scott would be like, then cut that too, bro.
Cut that too. Yeah. Also, the narrative that comes in the first like 20 hours of the game could have taken one.
Yeah, that was another argument. He said that
whole section of Boozer being injured and stuck and doing that could all have been done in an hour and a half. Like,
he said
it took
in
me
focus
15.
testing, and you want to know why they didn't remove that? He said in focus testing, everyone complained about it, that it took way too long to get to the first camp. And he basically
said
even
longer to get to the first horde. Like horde killing takes forever.
He said he couldn't cut it because it was the most polished part of the game that they had shown at trade shows over and over. And if they took it out, people would be like, oh, it's bait and switch. And then he talked about, do you remember the golf cart ride that lasted like 12 minutes? It's a ride and talk.
Oh, yeah, where you get the tour of the thing. Yeah,
that was originally 15 minutes long.
Good God.
And they cut it down to 8. And then that's what he said. He's like, we had like walk and talk, ride and talks that were like that all the way through the game. We ended up chopping them all out. And he said
that stuff happens in development. Like sometimes like these developers have these ideas that you're going to be willing to sit. You know, in the first Assassin's Creed where you had to sit and eavesdrop on people? Yeah. Where you had to listen like a little quick conversation. Those eavesdropping sections were originally 15 minutes of conversation you had to listen to. And it's just like, who in the...
Well, you got to realize this is a problem with the game director being the same person as the lead writer.
Right.
That's the problem.
Like
you
no
have a
one's
guy
there to
who's
kill
supposed
your
to check
babies,
himself
basically.
who's not going to check himself. So... That was one of the other interesting things that he brought up. But then,
because as a writer for any kind of project like this, film or TV or game, you have to be ready to cut your favorite part out to make it all fit as a larger whole. And that clearly didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it still ended up being a bloated game. Let's be honest, it was bloated, and he spent a lot of time talking to Jaffe defending that. But probably the most interesting thing that he said in the whole conversation, other than people need to buy games at full price if they want to see a sequel, is that any game at PlayStation, any first-party PlayStation game that gets a 70, you can pretty much guarantee that the director is going to be fired. That any Metacritic score of 70 or lower, that game's never getting a sequel at PlayStation, period. Mm-hmm. And here's the crazy thing.
This news does not surprise me.
Me either. He had actually left Sony Bend like right after the game launched because he knew he was going to be fired, basically. He didn't say that outright, but between all his statements put together, you can gather that he's like, I was going to be fired anyway. I might as well go out on my own accord. So he's actually been gone from the studio since like mid-2019 at this point. Now, Joe, the other guy we talked about last week, he stuck around until the end of last year. So he was there for
he just left in December, right?
And he's the one, right? And he's the one who ended up dealing with like the new workforce and was having issues dealing with the younger employees and blah blah blah. But yeah, he said that if any get like he said even Gravity Rush 2, which got I think it ended with like an 80 Metacritic.
Yeah, that did okay.
That team was still dissolved.
Yeah, because it didn't sell.
Right. Yeah. So he basically said, developing games for Sony first party is high stakes. And if you don't deliver, you're going to have to find a new job. And that's one of the reasons he got out of the ecosystem.
That's everything?
Yeah.
That's everyone?
Yeah.
Sure, if you're not working for Sony, you're doing your own thing. If your game doesn't sell, your company dissolves because you don't have money to keep it up. That's business. What do you think's going to happen? That's very weird.
That was something that...
To treat that as some kind of insight is strange to me.
Yeah. That was something that John Garvin was using to explain what happened at Bend. Whereas Joe, who was on the show the week prior, had a kind of a different set of reasons why everything went to crap. So it was just kind of a different perspective, and one was from...
Well, the other guy seemed to be more... Was it Ross?
Yeah, Jeff Ross.
Yeah, he seemed to be more about the aftermath of what happened, and Garvin was more talking about sort of...
Because Garvin was more directly responsible for the Metacritic scores, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guarantee you could have gotten 3 or 4 more Metacritic points if you hadn't spent that much time riding around trying to get medicine for Boozer.
Yeah, and the long rides on the motorcycle where the exposition would happen,
and it wouldn't have been that bad if the goddamn thing to run out of fuel all the time.
Yeah,
if I could just ride the bike, it would be fine.
Yeah, it didn't need the survival elements in it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could have done to fix the game, and now they'll never.
There's a bunch of stuff I like in concept, but that's what I say about the sequels. I think if you did another one, you would be able to refine those into something that holds together better. Also, you can talk about the polished part about what you showed in the demos and stuff all you want, but the thing I remember being shown in the demos was the goddamn horde stuff,
right?
And that doesn't come into the game till 30 hours in or something. I didn't run into that for forever.
All the simulation stuff I thought bogged the game down, like having to get gasoline for stuff or anything, like having to get it for the generators and You're right. It never got to the fun parts quick enough. It took way too long to deal with the first horde, and then the hordes were too difficult to deal with at first. I could go on and on about the problems with the game, but that's the Crib Notes version. Again, I do recommend you go and check out Jaffe's channel to watch the whole thing. It's another hour and a half or 2 hour conversation, not as juicy as the Jeff Ross interview that he did the week prior. But I will say this, you do, and I do like this about Jaffe's show and his content in general, is you do get a better idea of what really happens at development studios.
This one was more interesting in terms of what it's like to make a game like that.
Because he talks a lot about, you guys don't even know who Scott Rohde is. Scott Rohde is basically the cop inside Sony first party studios. He works on every Sony first party game. He goes around to the studios, he travels, he goes and checks out the latest builds, he gives them feedback on what they need to fix with the games. He's awesome, by the way. He is one of the best people that I've ever worked with in the industry. And when I say work with, I mean interviewed and then may have had a beer or two with later at the bar. He just
also seems like, given his track record, they might have wanted to listen to him a little closer.
Right. And he said, he's everybody respects Scott Rohde. And when he shows up, you do listen and you do what he tells you to, because the proof is in the pudding. The games that he goes and works on, they become successful games. So it wasn't that he was rebelling against Scott Rohde or rejecting what he told him. He just seemed to come up with a million ideas in his head why the game needed to be exactly the way he thought the game needed to be. And it did not work out, and now he's working somewhere else. So I think that's the end of the road on this Sony Bend Days Gone story. Jaffe's now had the 2 guys in there. And again, I do suggest you go and check it out. In fact, this interview is on Sifted. You can go to the Days Gone page on Sifted, and it's there.
Also, just on the subject of Sony, if you put up a cheat that triples the amount of gas in the bike, I will pay you $1.99 for that. Just so I can finish that
DLC worth
game.
Paying for, right?
Yeah, I will buy that cheat code from you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our final topic of episode 252. And as you guys probably guessed from the beginning of the show what it would be, you were right. It is Resident Evil Village. This week, really, the game was laid bare. in a number of ways. So Game Informer started doing its coverage of Resident Evil Village. Capcom had its own RE showcase, the second one for Resident Evil Village. And then yesterday, IGN published a video preview of Resident Evil Village based upon the first 5 hours of the game. Matt, how angry do you think Game Informer was when Capcom informed them that IGN was going to do a video preview based on the first 5 hours of the game?
I probably weren't too thrilled.
I realized that they still couldn't turn down the cover access for the game, but I think it kind of shows you where magazines are right now. Typically, you lock down an exclusive, give a game a cover like that, IGN is not publishing a video preview like 2 days later. That's just not the way it used to happen. But magazines are in dire straits, and they got to take what they can get at this point.
And Game Informer doesn't really have the clout it used to.
It's true. And truth be told, of everything, the RE showcase really gave up the most information anyway. Where do we even start with this? Maybe we'll start with something people don't expect, and that is the fact that Mercenaries is coming back. Matt, were you surprised by this at all, or did you think that that was just going to be the case because people have been requesting it for so long?
I mean, I guess probably the latter, for as much as I care about it.
Do you not like it? Did you not play Mercenaries?
Like on Resident Evil 4, yeah.
I mean, they did it up until 6, I think.
Sure.
I think 4, 5, and 6 all had Mercenaries.
I'm not a multiplayer person really, and I don't find Resident Evil's gameplay to be fun enough on its own to want to do multiplayer with it. So I don't really care about Mercenaries now.
Interesting. Well, here's all the details on it, and Matt, you can just tune out for a minute here. If you guys forgot what Mercenaries is, it's kind of like, it's a little bit like Left 4 Dead. You have to fight through a gauntlet of enemies and reach the end of the stage, but you have a timer that ticks down. So that adds the tension. It really ratchets up the tension of trying to complete each round. And then the new additions for Resident Evil Village, there's an in-game shop between each stage where you can buy items and upgrades from Duke. And Duke is that portly fellow that you've been seeing in the recent trailers. He also is in the single-player campaign as a merchant. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you visit him in between each stage, and you can buy consumable items, you can buy upgrades, you can customize your weapons, and you can buy special abilities, which are like buffs. Some of the stuff that they showed and mentioned was increased weapon damage, faster movement speed, hit point recovery, like defensive buffs, and if you watch some of this footage very closely, you can see exploding enemies as well. I don't know if that's a buff or if they're just in the game or if it's like an ability that you can pay for or whatever. But obviously, if you do have that ability and you pick the right enemy to explode, it could take out some other enemies along with them, which could add a nice layer of strategy to it. Matt, why have you... It's not really like a multiplayer thing. Did you not play Mercenaries in RE4 at all?
Yeah. I mean, more of a co-op thing, as I recall.
Yeah, it was. But... you can also play it by yourself if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I did. It just, without someone else, it kind of felt just like, okay, just an inevitable death coming as the waves wash over you. I don't know. It just does. I don't find the gameplay that enchanting. I'm more for the overall sort of campaign experience.
I mean, it is a little better now with RE7 in Village. Now that
like the first person the gameplay might lend itself better to that. Now I don't know. It's not a selling point to me.
I think it's a good chance. I liked it. I didn't love it. Some people loved it. Like I know some people that got more into that.
I have some friends who
played
it obsessively.
So I think it's smart for them to bring it back, and I think the changes that they've made to it have made it deeper, something that you can play for a lot longer. What I really
definitely adds value to the package. I mean, not to me, but in general, it does.
Mm-hmm. What I liked about it is that it gave you a chance to take on all the enemies from the campaign in very short bursts. Whereas, the way the campaigns go in Resident Evil, you almost see enemies in depending on where you are. There's this one area where there's flying enemies, and then you're in the mansion, and there's another type of enemy that you're fighting all the time. And as you make progress, you see these different enemies depending on the location that you're at. What I liked about Mercenaries was it just threw them all into the wash. But then you also remember how you had tackled those enemies in the campaign, and that helped you play Mercenaries. The other thing I'm wondering, too, is if this Mercenaries will only unlock after you finish the campaign. Because if I remember correctly, that's the way RE4 was, right?
That sounds right. Or at the very least, so much stuff was unlocked by playing the campaign that it wasn't really worth playing Mercenaries until you finish the campaign.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that was the case, though. At least the original GameCube version. I think you had to finish.
I definitely remember waiting for other people to finish the game before we started playing Mercenaries mode.
Yeah.
In one of them. Maybe it wasn't RE4, but it was something. Like, because I remember sitting here, one of the four of us that still was like behind on finishing the campaign. We had to wait like an extra day or two for them to finish the game before it was worth playing Mercenaries together.
Yep. So I do enjoy it, and I think it's a great addition. I like that they beefed it up and added a little bit more strategy to it. So I think it's a good addition. It's better than like tacking on some goofy multiplayer mode. I mean, like they showed in the first RE showcase. Remember that thing that had like the cell shaded characters and all that crap?
Yeah, that didn't look good.
Yeah, apparently there's a beta for that launching today, I believe. I think I saw it on Sifted earlier today, that there's like a beta launching today for that, but it only runs for 24 hours. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, Mercenaries makes a lot more sense to me as an online kind of multiplayer permutation of Resident Evil than like any of the other ones they've done. Yep. Like, you know, it certainly is. Resident Evil as a competitive multiplayer game is silly to me.
Yeah, I could see that. It's better now, though, that it's all first person. I think it provides more opportunities. Maybe that's why they've moved it to first person what seems like permanently. It's because it does crack things open a little bit to be a little more adventurous with game modes and extras and things like that. We'll see if it lasts, but I'm guessing probably RE is in first person for the foreseeable future. That would be my guess anyway.
I think that's probably not true.
No. But
maybe as long as they stick with Ethan as the character. I feel like that part, because they went first person for VR. And they seem to just be carrying that forward in this one. And I wonder if part of that is because this was originally going to also be VR and they just sort of gave up on it early on. And we're just like, well, it's already first person. And instead of redoing everything, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if Resident Evil 9 is first person and you don't play as Ethan. Then I would agree with you that this is just what Resident Evil is going to be from now on. But the fact that they did the remakes of 2 and 3 in third person to me says that they are still willing to do that and still able to do that.
Yep.
And we'll see about Resident Evil 4's remake too. I mean, that I wonder if they'll do anything first person in that, even if like a secondary mode or something.
Well, they also announced during that showcase that Resident Evil 4 is coming to Oculus Quest, and so I'm wondering if the rumors that were supposed to be Resident Evil 4 remake were actually this.
Could be both.
Because sometimes that does happen. Like you get word that like, oh, they're working on a new Resident Evil 4 project. And you think to yourself, well, then it has to be. What else
would that be?
What else could it be? And then something like this gets announced and you're like, oh, that's what it was. It's not 100%, but I'm just putting it out there. It might.
Although if you're updating Resident Evil 4, you might as well put it out on the new systems.
Yeah.
After the success of the other 2 remakes, it feels like if I were Capcom, I'd be remaking all of them.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, especially RE4, which is heralded as the greatest in franchise history. But I was a little put off by that. I was like, oh, that means that we may not actually be getting a legit remake of RE4. The game still looks great as well, by the way. Like I'm watching B-roll of it right now. It still looks freaking awesome. Yeah,
the argument that Resident Evil 4 doesn't really need a remake is valid, but like I think it could stand a coat of paint.
Yeah. How long has it been now? What year did that come out?
It came out in 2005, I want to say.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Like January 2005.
That sounds right to me. Love that game. Still love it. Just watching this B-roll makes me want to play it again. It's just.
I remember seeing that the first time. So I think the first time I saw that was at like Capcom's Vegas event at like January like 2004, like a year before it came out, and like no one had seen it before. It was because we'd seen that like one trailer with Chris Redfield and like. The ghosts and stuff, and like it would turn out to not be the early version and a lot.
The crazy enemy with like the scythe or whatever, or the scissors that like
And they premiered it with like it was like a scissor man kind of thing from Clock Tower and stuff. Yeah, they premiered it at this event. That was like the big thing they did at the end of the event. We all played. I remember coming back and to X-Play and being like, this thing's fucking crazy, guys. Like it's amazing. Like and like you and Sessler and the others were like, he doesn't like horror games this much. Why is he so excited about this thing? Like you were like, and you're like, it's behind your aim and stuff. Like, that doesn't sound like Resident Evil. I'm like, no, it's great.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why it's so awesome.
Yeah, because
like we're watching like the big like ogre boss fight right now. Just there's so many awesome moments in this. Like when he just rips the tree up by the roots and swings it at you. Like
yeah, and I get like the people like the purists who I knew several of them that were purists who thought that the move away from the the awkward tank controls and the frustrating inability to see what you're shooting at was like, oh, you ruined it because like that was what Art Resident Evil is. And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong, but also that sucks. So Resident Evil 4 is way better. Like I love Resident Evil 4. It's still the best in the series to me.
Okay, let's get back to Village because we have a lot to get to and we're running out of time. So as I said, there's been all kinds of reporting on Village over the last week. You could go on Sifted and you could read all the stories or watch all the video previews, or you could listen to me for like the next 5 minutes. It is a direct sequel to RE7, and as I said, when the first time I saw it, it is a combination of RE7 and RE4. The gameplay in the game feels a lot like Resident Evil 4. I think that'll make a lot of people happy. Little stuff like being able to shoot the enemies in the leg and it hobbles them. Being able to like melee attack enemies after you execute a block, all those little cool gameplay tweaks that were in RE4 have made it into, and we're just going to call it RE8 instead of saying Village every single time. As far as everyone can tell, there are no zombies in the game so far. All the enemies are just
werewolf farmers.
Are lycans. Yeah, the people have been changed into werewolves instead of zombies. Now, obviously, what's her name again? I always keep forgetting her name.
The giant vampire lady
or whatever. Her and her daughters, they appear to be vampires. At least that's what it seems to be. And then the rest are lycans. Let's see. The enemies
are lycanthropes, not moss.
Yeah, the enemies are smart.
Although
so
Resident Evil could have moss monsters too. Like they could do that.
The enemies are smart, just like RE4 as well. You can barricade doors in this, and even in the demo that was released that Matt and I are going to talk about, you could barricade the doors in that. However, they'll move the barricades. So just because you barricade something, that doesn't mean you're safe. It just buys you a little bit of time. So the first demo that came out, it's actually out of chronological order from the way the game actually plays. The second demo that just came out yesterday or the day before after the presentation, it actually
for 8 hours.
Takes place before the demo that we played first, and you arrive in the village. There's a little bit of stuff that happens before you get to the village, but you arrive at the village. There's a creaky old woman there. She warns you about Lady Demiscu. I don't know if I'm saying her name wrong. Demistricu, I think maybe is how you say it. The whole village basically worships her, and she's up in the castle. They're down in the village. And apparently she has protected them for many years. And my guess is she has protected them from the lycanthrope, the werewolves, who have suddenly gone crazy and they are now starting to prey on the village. And that's where this new second demo picks up. And we'll get into that in a lot of detail in a minute. But really the thing that kind of piqued my interest about all the coverage of this is that what we're seeing now is a very small part of the game. So it almost sounds like you leave like Lady Demiscu in the dust. Like your confrontation with her ends, and she's just like kind of the part of the game because one piece of coverage shows a map, and her area is just like a dot on the map, and then there's just these like 10 or 12 other locations scattered around the map. So this isn't a Resident Evil game where the whole game takes place inside the mansion, or takes place, in her case, in this castle. You go to a bunch of different
it takes place
locations.
In a village, clearly.
In a village. But there's a lot more locations. Like RE7, for the most part, took place in just like one general location. Yeah. You weren't adventuring.
Well, I think there was definitely that one clip from a few weeks ago where Lady Demistricu, is that her name?
I don't know, dude. That's as best as I can pronounce it.
She definitely answers to somebody else.
Yeah, people are calling her or whatever.
Yeah, Dimitrescu. Yeah, let's go with that, I guess.
Yeah.
That's phonetically what I don't think they said it in the demo. We called her Mother Miranda or something.
Yeah.
Unless it's somebody else. And she was clearly answering to someone. Then she hung up and throws the desk across the room because she's mad. So she's clearly an underling of some kind. I don't think we've seen the big bad
Right. But look at all the hype she's generating.
And
she's just like the
they
first
knew
boss.
Who to push on this one. She's going to be a cosplay staple.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me excited, though, to think that she's just kind of the first boss that you really have to take down, and there could be other bosses just as awesome and intimidating as she is. What else? Let's see. So you get to the castle eventually once you fight through the village, and we're starting to see footage now of the village demo that was up this weekend for just 8 hours, as Matt mentioned. We're going to talk about that in a second. And you fight through the village, and then you get to her castle, and then the objective is you have to take out her 3 daughters, and then you take her out. Ethan is captured by them. He's tortured and sent to the basement, and that's where the first demo picks up. So the first demo was you waking up in a cell in the basement and then getting out of the basement and going back up into the castle where you end up meeting up with the daughters and Lady Miranda, it's easier to say, I guess, again.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually her... Mother Miranda's the same person as Lady Dimitrescu, but
you don't think so?
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell because they pray to her at one point, and they seem to. She's keeping it safe, so I think maybe they mean her. I don't know. I wasn't sure. I'm not clear.
And Lady Dimitrescu is like Nemesis. She follows you all over the castle. Now she's slower than Nemesis, and people have said that it's not quite as intense from a combat perspective. However, they said there's a lot more puzzles in Village, and you have to solve puzzles while she's bearing down on you. So think about that. I think that's a pretty cool idea. You have to solve a puzzle using your mind while you're worried about physical harm coming from this 10-foot-tall vampire lady. So they said that the puzzles aren't crazy intense. If you could just sit there and do them at your leisure, they wouldn't be that hard to solve. The problem is solving them while she's breathing down your neck. Again, I think that's a really cool idea and a little bit of a twist from what we're used to with the franchise. And they said also that those puzzles are kind of like benchmarks in the game, and that when you solve one, they're a big moment that generally unlocks a huge new section of the environment or the castle for you to explore. They also said, like Resident Evil 4, that oftentimes you fight against large numbers of enemies. The demo that you're seeing right now, I think the most I fought against was like 2 or 3 at a time, something like that. And they weren't too hard to handle. They did take a lot of shots, though, before they went down, it seemed like to me. You only get, in the first fight, you only have 1 shotgun shell and then, 10 handgun shells. And I think I ended up using all my ammo to drop the 2 werewolves. But, yeah, you fight against large groups of enemies, just like RE4. And as I said earlier, the enemies do change based on your location. Eventually, you end up fighting, flying enemies, which isn't something you get a lot of in Resident Evil. We talked about the weapon merchant earlier. His name is Duke. He's the portly fellow. He ends up appearing in the village eventually, and everyone who has played the game so far has said that he is like the angel, that after you've been through these intense moments inside the game, he is the moment of respite where you can kind of go and reset, restock, improve your weapons. There's also crafting in the game, Matt. I don't know how you feel about that. But
it's not super different from combining herbs, I guess.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense in this. You're picking up scrap and stuff like that. And
I don't mind the idea of being able to make my own bullets, just to kind of offset the scarcity of ammo.
That's what I'll be spending all my scrap on. I'll just be honest with you. That's the thing about Resident Evil. And one big change was for RE4 was it wasn't like one of those games where you're counting your ammo all the time. And I liked that about Resident Evil 4. And it does. I will say this: it does take a little bit away from the survival horror elements of the game. I won't disagree with any of that. But I think sometimes you just have to make progress. And I feel like giving you the ability to make your own ammo is one way to do that. And it keeps the game from just kind of becoming a slog as well. I know a lot of people like the ammo preservation. They feel like it's part of the strategy. I totally get it. I've played, I don't know how many Resident Evils that have it. I'm good. I'm ready to move on and to have that part of the game kind of come up with the sort of the way modern action games are today. And then the final part was that they said that the castle is just one chapter of a gigantic game. So Resident Evil 7 was not that big. If I remember, it took me 10 hours maybe to finish it, something like that. I don't know how much of that was the fact that it was a VR game kind of holding back its breadth and the development of the game in general. But it appears that Village is going to be a much bigger game than what we experienced with Resident Evil 7. just some final tech stuff on it. The game runs at, according to Digital Foundry, runs around 45 frames per second. Although and that's with ray tracing on. If you disable ray tracing, then you can get it to 60 frames per second at 4K. Now let's talk about the demo, which we're seeing footage of right now. First of all, let's just talk about how they're handling this demo, because that's a whole topic all on its own, Matt, to be perfectly honest with you. This demo was rolled out to PlayStation first, so PS5 and PS4. On Saturday, you had an 8-hour window to play it. And if you didn't play it within that 8-hour window, you couldn't play it at all. On top
Which I
of
did
that,
not realize
a lot of
originally.
people didn't.
And intended to come back and finish it Sunday, and then couldn't. Although it turned out I was a lot further than I thought I was.
Yeah.
But like it is the most I think Nathan Grayson wrote something on Kotaku today that was called something like the way they're doing the Resident Evil Village demo is the dumbest shit ever. And I'm like, I can't really disagree with that.
It is pretty stupid. So
if you're trying to do a demo to like let me to test your game to see if I want to buy it, why are you limiting it like that? It's so weird.
So not only did you only have an 8-hour window to play it, so we can't tell you to go play it now because it's gone. The other part is that you had a 30-minute limit of actually playing it. So if you didn't complete it in 30 minutes, you just ended up being left off where you were. Now, pro tip, in case they decide to do this again.
And it's locked to your account, right? Like you can't even do it again.
You can do it again, but you have to use a different account. So
like this, like once my gamer tag or whatever is done with 30 minutes, like you can't ever play it again.
Right. But if you have another account on your PlayStation, you can switch to that account and you can play it again. And I did do that. And the first time I played through it, I ended up becoming like one room short of finishing it. Like Matt, I got to the part where like she died in the fire. And I didn't. And then I got to the part where I got out of the house and I was out on the landing, and that's where it stopped. So basically, all I had to do was jump down and then run and then use the crest and walk through the doors. And then the second time I played it, I finished it in 5 minutes, 5:50 or something like that. In this demo, Matt, I'm a little concerned if this is the way the whole game is going to be, because cinematics literally took up 25 minutes of the 30-minute playtime it come to be. I mean, I did do a little bit of wandering around trying to figure out what to do, but the bulk of the 30 minutes was spent watching cinematics. That seems a little tilted in one direction to me. For a gameplay first guy, that's a little concerning.
I'm thinking like that is early on still, and it's clearly this felt very Resident Evil 4, both in also in the sense that like it reminded me of when Leon arrives in the village for the first time and has to sort of get his bearings and what the hell is going on around here.
Right, yeah.
It's clearly very early in the game because Ethan still doesn't know what's happening. So I would imagine it opens up a little more once you get past this part and kind of get to start exploring the castle. But yeah, there's a lot of narrative, and a lot of it is the actors are doing their best to deliver some really badly written dialogue. Once you get in the house with the meeting with all the survivors, like the one drunk guy is like really embarrassingly bad.
Yeah, that is really bad. That performance is awful. So you have the one guy who's pissed off. So basically what happens is you fight through the section you're seeing right now. Eventually you come to homes where there are normal people who are cowering in their homes. They let you in. The one guy is like all pissed off that they let you in, and he just completely overacts the script. It is very off-putting.
I mean, he doesn't have much to work with from the script either.
Yeah, the script isn't great either.
Like 90% of the lines in this demo are literally so generic horror trope that you could lift them from almost any other movie. And you see them, you can hear the actors struggling to deliver some of them, where it's just like, how do I say this? It's not great. Like, and that guy's speech in particular felt like it had been run through a couple of translators.
Yeah, which it probably has. But I will say this, like even in this little 30-minute demo, there's a couple moments though that were pretty good. Like, so the one girl's father has been bitten by one of the lycanthropes, and you're trying to save him. You take him inside. And you go inside
after
the house.
You find them in a house with a door that does not seem to lock.
Yeah, because you just walk right in, and they're like cowering inside from the werewolves or whatever. But anyway, the one girl has a father. You're trying to help her save him or whatever. He turns, and he just he just takes this machete and just buries it like halfway into this woman's body. And I was like, damn, like, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I am a little concerned. You're right. Like, I look back at RE4, and there really wasn't like a lot of setup explaining what was going on. Like, you just walk into the village, and people are acting weird. And they leave it.
And then the bell rings, and it's just time to run.
And they leave it to you to kind of figure it out. This is a lot more overt storytelling. Like, there's people, like, immediately there's someone explaining to you mostly what's going on. Like, this woman used to like after us, now she's not, and these monsters are running around.
But it's notable that they very quickly kill everyone in that house, and then you continue on by yourself, and like it feels like flavor more than a portent of heavy narrative in the future. I'm sure Lady What's Her Name is gonna,
that's what we're gonna call her from now on, Lady What's Her Name.
Yeah, I mean, once I hear them say it in the game more often, I'll be able to replicate that. But Dimitrescu, I don't know.
Yeah, they made it really complicated for really no reason.
But well, I mean, I get what you're going for a Dimitri thing. So I get it. I get where the pedigree of that is coming from etymologically, but I just don't know how they want me to pronounce it yet. I will say that, like, even as someone who played I think I played like the demo of 7, and I never played the main game. This is infinitely more interesting to me than the premise wise than like guy trapped in Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. Like, I do not care about a weird murdery family in a house. But this is a much more interesting idea to me, and like it's it lends itself better to the exploration idea. I do like that there's like things like the wells and stuff you see around. Like there's things like, oh, this needs another object. I'm like, okay, so I'll be coming back here with other stuff to open more things and do that kind of like. I like what I'm seeing so far. For sure, which I haven't said about a Resident Evil game in a very long time.
Yeah.
The Resident Evil 4 influence is tangible, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, and it's a really good thing. It has me very excited. I'm very excited for this game. I really enjoyed this demo. I think what Capcom is doing with it is absolutely idiotic. Like, not only the 8-hour window to play it, not just the 30-minute window, but like the exclusivity on PlayStation and the schedule for it is so freaking confusing. Like,
it is just a bizarre thing. It's a commercial. Why are you making it hard to be advertised to?
I don't get it at all. It's really dumb. It is eventually coming to Xbox. It is eventually coming to PC. But the schedule for it is all goofy. I don't know if a third demo is actually going to be released or not.
There is. There's a countdown on it now.
Oh, there is.
It says like 4 days and whatever hours till the next demo.
Huh. So it is pretty cool that we'll have gotten 3 demos of this game before it comes out. Like, I like that part of it. It's just that the way the distribution is working, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it's like, why can't you just let people play that one until the next one? If you want to lock each demo out as the next one comes out, I guess okay. But like, why not give people a week to play this one until the next one comes out?
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. But I will say this: if the objective of a demo is to make you more excited to play the game, this absolutely did it. And I would say...
Yeah, that a mission accomplished in that regard.
But I would say the first demo really didn't. The first demo was like this boring, like, find this item down in this creepy dungeon and then go upstairs, and then there's a little piece of action, and then it ends.
Yeah, I didn't play the first one.
You didn't miss anything.
But this one, like, I mean, I was already gonna play this one. Play this game. There's nothing else coming out anyway.
Yeah.
But like, no, it was a positive experience. Like, it didn't. I was ready for this to kind of make me go, oh no, I'm not going to like this. Maybe I'll just back off entirely, just like I did with 7. But no, I am more interested now after this demo.
Yeah, I'm really hyped for it. Like, really, really excited for it. And it's coming pretty soon. That's the good news. Like, we don't have to wait much longer for this game to come. My God, have we waited a long time for a
couple of weeks.
Game.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about what comes out Friday. But
what's Friday?
The Nier remake.
Oh, that's right. Nier Replicant?
Replicant.
Yeah.
Nier Replicant, bunch of numbers.
Yeah. Which, again, why?
I don't know. But I love the original Nier. I do actually prefer old dad Nier hero versus young hot brother Nero. I don't know, but I really like Nier, and I'm looking forward to playing it again, maybe in a refined state, because much as I love that game, it did not age well.
Yeah, I mean, it needed reworked for sure.
Definitely.
But anyway, that's pretty much it for what we know right now of Resident Evil Village. A great week for the game. I think a lot of people, when they get their hands on that demo, are going to feel like Matt and I did and really, really excited to play the final game. I am feeling like I felt RE4 vibes from that game from the first time I saw it. First trailer, I think the first thing I said was RE4. I think I've been saying it all along on GameFace, and now having played it, seeing the reports from people who have played more of it than I have, very, very encouraging. I hope you all would agree with me that RE4 is the best Resident Evil ever. I don't know. I think most people agree with that, but some people don't.
I don't think that's a super controversial statement, no.
Yeah, some people are purists and want the weird tank controls.
I think it's either 4 or 2.
I'd agree with that, too. Yeah. And that remake for 2 was great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it was awesome. Yeah. But still, RE4 to me, I could just go on and on about everything about it. I remember all the characters, all the bosses, all the creatures, all the sub-bosses. A lot of those other RE games, like, I just remember patches of them. And it's not like I played RE4, like, 50 times. Like, I played it once, and then half of it again the second time. Mm. So, yeah, it's not like this thing that I've obsessively played or anything. Like,
I played it once every time it came out on a new system, basically, a new generation, basically. So I played it on GameCube, I played it on Wii, and I played it when it came to Xbox One, I think.
I played it on GameCube, and then I played it halfway through on Wii, and that's where I stopped. I just love it. I love everything about it. And seeing that this game is a lot like it. I also like that it's werewolves, and they're faster, and they're deadlier.
Yeah, I'm glad for a break from zombies. I don't...
Yeah.
It's vampires are... Why not? Resident Evil, everything. Who cares? Like, just in fact, there's part of me that's like a little frustrated with Ethan in that demo because it's just like he's like, "What's going up?" I'm like, "Dude, the town got taken over by zombies and like got nuked, and you ended up in a mansion with a bunch of crazy people." It's like werewolves. Are they really far off from the rest of your experience here?
Well, then there's a whole Chris Redfield angle. Like, there's one shot in one of the trailers. It looks like there's like a human body factory. Like, they show a bunch of human bodies on, like, meat hooks, like, going up this conveyor. I don't know. Yep. Like, that's what I'm excited about.
There's been speculation about whether the Chris Redfield we saw in 7 is really Chris Redfield because he doesn't look like Chris Redfield. You think they're making, like, Chris Redfield clones? Yes, there's tons of Chris Redfield now.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot. If you start poking through that trailer, and we showed you a couple of times earlier, there's some shots in there where you're like, Like,
the other thing that I remember striking me in the demo is like the weird, like, dramatic music sting every time you find a key item is hilarious to me.
I actually turned down the music to record B-roll.
Like, every time you open the like, you find a key item, you get like a big dunno.
Oh, really?
And it's just like screwdriver. It's like, okay, I found car keys. Like, who gives a shit? Like, it's a little much, but
it's a good cross section of all Resident Evils, though, because you still have like you find an object, you have to inspect it and rotate it and manipulate it. Like the car keys, for instance, like you pick them up, but you can't use them right away. You need to find like the thing you need to jimmy.
That's the part that's funny because when you pick up the car keys, it does the dun thing, and then you open and find a screwdriver and does it again. And it's just like, okay, like. Easy, boys. If I find a toolbox, we'll be here all day.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed that demo, even despite all the stupid crap all around it from Capcom. I'm really excited to play the final game, and I hope you guys are too, because we all need a great game to play together right about now, don't we? All right, let's get to some Q&A. We can't answer too many because we're already over time, but we'll get to a couple at least. Let's see. Saber Juno. I wish Stealthy was in here. We would answer all his questions right in a row after the donation he gave us. Favorite light gun game from the arcades? Mine was Silent Scope. This is from Saber Juno. Mine was Silent Scope. Also starting with Time Crisis 3. You shoot while hiding to switch between weapons. Okay. My favorite was Time Crisis. Just in general as like a franchise, it was my favorite one. But I would argue probably the best light gun game I've played probably was House of the Dead 2, as Matt had alluded to earlier. But franchise-wise and the tone and everything, like, Time Crisis wasn't as hokey as the other ones. I don't know why. Was it made in the U.S. maybe?
Time Crisis? God, no. That was Namco.
That was Japan, yeah.
That was Japan Namco by far, for sure.
But it did have the bar that you stepped on to duck. It just felt a little bit different than the others. What about you,
Yeah,
Matt?
I did. I mean, House of the Dead Overkill was probably my favorite in that series. You're talking about favorite light gun game of all time. God, it might be Alien 3 with the giant pulse rifles.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And the other one I played.
That made me tired to play though. That's the other thing about light gun games. After a while, your arm starts to get tired from like holding the gun out.
Yeah. That one was on a tripod. Like it was on the machine. Like you tilted it up and down. And then the other one, like, I don't know if it's particularly good, but I played it a lot in part because the girl I was dating at the time loved it. Revolution X, where you fought. That was the one with Aerosmith in it.
I definitely don't remember it then.
You had to fight like tyrannical, like oppressive censorship, like goons who were like forcing all the kids to go to school and shit. And
I remember now.
You had to shoot with the thing, and then your grenade thing was you shot CDs and blew stuff up, and then like everybody had all the Aerosmith guys had little like video clips and stuff, and I just remember Steve Tyler very seriously looking at me and going like, "Music is the weapon."
You know what else is good, Matt? And it's not even that old. That Jurassic Park one where you're in like the Jeep or whatever.
In the Jeep. Yeah,
that's intense, dude. Those dinosaurs like come right up in your grill. You're like, whoa! Like
the Silent Hill one was pretty good. The one that was made a few years ago.
I never played it.
It costs a lot of money, but like you basically go in and sit on the thing, and like you got to go. It's like decisions you got to make, and like you got to make choices in places, and it's really hard. I never got very far in it, but it was impressive. It was one of those things like, yeah, if you ever made these things for home use, I would probably buy these. But if you ever get a chance to, if you ever see one of the Silent Hill machines somewhere, I recommend trying it. It's probably the last interesting Silent Hill game you're ever going to play.
Next one from a bunch of jerks. Shane, have you ever considered setting up a crypto wallet to accept Bitcoin donations? I'll send you $10 in Bitcoin if you do. I had not considered that, but now I will. If you can, I guess $10 is like 0.00001 Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin's so expensive right now.
Not a lot of Bitcoin there.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's exploded over the last like half a year, really. It's gone from like $6,000 to like $56,000 very quickly. I'll look into that, actually. It may not be that hard to set up. Or if at the very least, maybe we can set up our donate page at sifted.net/donate to accept Bitcoin. That might be the easier route to go. But anyway, I'll look into it. And thank you for offering to give us $10. That's awesome, man. ETH Demon, what gamer games have you seen people pick up in the pandemic to surprise you? For me, seeing tons of people playing Final Fantasy 14. I mean, Animal Crossing to me, I mean, that's the obvious one. Like, people that I know that had never played games, got a Switch, got Animal Crossing, and then they're like texting me, asking me for tips, and I'm like, I hate that game. And they're like, what? They're like, I got this because I thought I could play along with you. And I'm like, I don't like Animal Crossing. Like, it is funny how people think that, like, hardcore gamers just like everything. So they think if they buy something, you've beaten it. You can tell them how to beat every part of it. You have all the pro, like, codes and, like, secrets about the game. It's like, no, we have taste, too, and we have things that we prefer like everybody else, things that we like and that we don't like. So it's definitely Animal Crossing. Like, even, like, dudes that I know that were, like, grizzled, like, people I played football with or whatever, like, they're playing Animal Crossing. So it just became a phenomenon that just kind of transcended all social groups, really. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me, even though it does make sense in a lot of ways. What about you, Matt?
I mean, I guess sort of that. I think addition to that, I guess, is the number of people I know who are trying to recapture the Animal Crossing experience by playing the new Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons games. Like people that I know have never played those series before, but they're like, oh, this looks kind of like Animal Crossing. I'm going to play this. And I was like, okay. Like, and a couple of them were like, oh, it wasn't too good. I'm like, play Stardew Valley. That's Stardew Valley is what you want. Yeah, I guess that. Yeah, I know a couple of people that did play Last of Us 2 that I wouldn't have expected to play Last of Us 2, except they were stuck inside and had nothing else to do. Yeah. Like back home, there were a lot of people like, oh my God, I didn't know video games were like this. I'm like, yeah, they're not. Like
most of them are.
Most of them are not like that. You played a really Yeah, you played a really high level one there.
That's the way to do it, though. If you're going to be one of those people that just pick up a few games, you need people like us to tell them which ones.
Mm-hmm.
JM Rain, thank you for all the gift subs to our awesome audience here on Twitch. Derek D111, thank you for Twitch Prime. See if I missed any other ones here. I wish we could answer more questions, but we're already over. 3 weeks in a row, this show has been 3 hours plus. This is all on me. It's my fault. I'm not moving the conversations along far enough. Apparently I'm a little off my game. I don't know why. But I wish we could answer more questions. There are a bunch in here, but we do need to go. Otherwise, I'm going to spend the next 2 days rendering this episode of GameFace. So anyway, that's it for GameFace, episode 252. If you're listening to this show out on the wilds of the internet, we're everywhere, by the way. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts. Where else? Stitcher. We're everywhere. If you're listening to the show on any of those places and you want to support us, and we do need the support, by the way, head to patreon.com/sifted. If you want to watch the show live, we're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/siftedgames. If you watch the show on YouTube, first of all, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I think that's what you're supposed to do. And also, if you can't afford to contribute, there are instructions below on how to give us a free $2.50 a month using Twitch Prime. Also, if you're Watch Pactor Factory, you know all about that. It makes a big difference for us, and we really kind of rely on it to make ends meet here. So I'm Shane Satterfield. You can find me on Twitter at Dinfire. Matt Kyle is my co-host. You can find him on Twitter at MKyle. And again, if you can't afford to support us in any way, you just want to know when the show goes up for free on YouTube or when it goes live on any of those free podcast networks that we're on, follow Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. So on behalf of Matt, I'm Shane. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.